How you gentlemen doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good. Let's get it on. So we got the GOAT on here tonight, man. YouTube's only the GOAT. Texas Longhorn content, man. This is actually Steve from Fanatic Perspective, man. He's the one that actually kind of I can tell you, if you haven't heard the story before, me and Jeremy were both active duty Army, living in Korea, and trying to get as much football content as you can, Texas Longhorn content as you can, and I can tell you, we tuned into Fanatic Perspective a lot. You know what I'm saying? It was like Fanatic Perspective and then RJ Young. And now all of a sudden you've got like 30 different channels producing content all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And we're trying to hang with the big boys, I think, at this particular point, Steven, man. But how you doing, brother?
You guys are the big boys, and it's a pleasure to be on here tonight talking some ball while we got an open practice going on. Ask and we shall receive, right, gentlemen?
You asked for this. And Steve Sarkisian addressed it, and he said, what did he say? It's like grandma's cookies without the secret ingredients. So guys are going to get what they want. They're going to see the guys out there in burnt orange and white tonight getting after it. Like you said, it's going to be pretty vanilla because he doesn't want tape to go out to Coach Joe at ULM or Coach Nick at Alabama, so that they can get a sense of what Texas is really working on. But it is an opportunity for our fan base to see our guys on DKR's field tonight. And like I said, you asked for it, you shall receive. We were actually going to do split ops tonight. We discussed me and Steven hopping on, or me jumping on with Steven and doing this and having Clint as an on-field correspondent at the same time, but he couldn't get out of work early enough to make it happen. So you got us tonight, and then we'll bug our guys that we know that are there on Twitter because they're posting pictures and posting video. We'll bug them about the turnout. And like Clint said, we're going to have whatever the turnout is, we're going to have that many number of experts come tomorrow about Texas football.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No, and I just want to clarify one thing about, the secret sauce and all that, right? I've never wanted to see schematic stuff and I'm talking about one-on-ones, right? Matchups, how we looking in the trenches, the stuff you see typically with NFL content that gets posted. They're not, everybody knows what everybody's base plays are. We know we're going to throw crossers. We know we're going to throw, like if we're throwing 4 verts, that's not CIA evidence, right?
Right.
That's not groundbreaking stuff. So we just want to see the guys compete. We want to see how they look in front of people, under certain conditions. I want to see how my kickers kick, with people actually watching them that aren't the staff. Just things like that. I'm not asking for the world. I understand, when the season starts, everything is lock and key. But at that point, we're seeing football every week. We are just looking to get something, especially some good news coming out of this team. So I'm glad, I'm happy that they were able to do this tonight. And, shout out to the fans that are out there at DKR.
Real quick, man, I was going to try to make it, got off work, and then realized I don't like the traffic between San Antonio, New Braunfels, San Marcos, and Buda. It would have took it. That's a disaster through there, man. And I wasn't willing to. I was like, you know what? I talked to Jeremy right after I got off, and I was like, man, do you think I should make that trip? Because I would like to, go out there and obviously take notes and say, okay, who's running with the ones at this point with Cole Hudson out? Who is Tariq Milton out there playing? Because it sounds like Tariq Milton and Casey Kane are the two guys that are going to have to step up with Isaiah Nair out. Who's going to run second team center now that, it looks like Junior Angelau is out for the season, or is out for the season. I think that's what I wanted to do, is really who's running with the ones, who's running the twos, because you can't hide that. You can't hide that. They're not going to change up the practice to say, okay, we're not going to run out the third wide receiver. So we're going to kind of have an idea who that is. Obviously Jonathan Brooks probably getting run with the twos, with Roschon out. I think that's what I wanted to see, was really what does the ones, twos, and threes look like? Hell, I'm really interested in the defensive line with the way that Byron Murphy and Vernon Broughton have been able to kind of show up. And we know, obviously, we're a big fan of Byron Murphy's on this channel, and I think a lot of people are, and what he does. Somebody said today, he's only 6'1", but when you can move a house, it's easy. You know what I'm saying? And That's what he brings, That's what he brings. So I think that's what I wanted to see. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it out there. I wasn't dealing with that traffic. I definitely wasn't dealing with that traffic today for a late night practice. But so let's kind of get into it, man. We would have really kind of just get Steven. I know most people listen to us. Most people, there's not a lot of subscribers that don't subscribe to us that subscribe to Fanatic Perspective. I can tell you that, and Steven, man. So
yeah, he's probably not going to get the bump from us that we would get from having him on. We know that with his 11.5 and our 3.7. But like you said, we talked a lot over the last 3 weeks about certain things, and that's in our position preview podcast. We talk about defensive line and how you got older group there that haven't been as productive as you'd like. You talk about the linebackers and how bringing in Diamante Tucker-Dorsey and the evolution of Jalen Ford was going to allow DeMarvion Overshown to do a lot of different things at that linebacker position. I know Steven's a Cowboy fan, so I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons, but do some of those Micah Parsons things. And then we talked about the secondary's ability to cover. And so we wanted to kind of throw those things at you, Steven. But the first thing we kind of wanted to address was something we addressed the other day, and that scrimmages need to happen in order for these guys to get reps. Just kind of what you said earlier, reps against competition, right? Because hitting a blocking sled, doing your individual drills, those don't really show the coaches everything they need to see in order to make depth chart decisions. So that being said, injuries happen. This is a contact sport, and I know one of the injuries was non-contact, but that's what needs to happen this fall to get us ready to get us in game shape for the season. So injuries. Talked about Isaiah Nayor. Talked about Roshan, but we know that's short term. Talked about Junior Angilau. Who do you see stepping up principally in those two areas with Isaiah Nayor? Clint mentioned Tariq Milton and Junior Angilau, because I know that's going to cause some shuffle on the line. Who do you see kind of moving around? Because we've talked about it. Like, this line is unsure. We could get all the positions right and all the players wrong. We could get all the players right and their positions might be wrong. Your thoughts on the offensive line with Angilau's injury and then the wide receiver core with Nayor being out for the season?
So first off, to Junior and Isaiah Nayor, it sucks. I was bummed. And look, I think there's a difference between being upset and bummed out, like a lot of Longhorn fans were this weekend, in terms of feelings for the player and what that individual player was going to do this season. We know Isaiah Nayor coming over from Wyoming and what we saw in the spring game and the physical profile that he brought to this team and the ceiling, or taking the ceiling off of this offense. So that's I feel terrible for him not getting that opportunity to showcase it this year. Junior Angilau is a fifth-year senior who was moving to a new position and really giving Jake Majors a run for his money, if not possibly, passing Jake Majors, right? Yeah. And so I feel bummed for him, and it sounds like his injury is pretty severe. So that is in one. I'm big next man up, and my head's not down in terms of the outlook for Texas football. Let's make that clear, right? But in terms of for those two guys in particular that won't even have an opportunity to come back this season, it sucks. Now, I mentioned Jake Majors. At this point, he's your center, right? Like, there's no more competition. And one of the reasons why they were going Jake Majors there at center, or going Junior Angilau there at center, is they want to run inside zone, and they want to establish a very dominant physical profile in the middle of their offensive line. And that's a Kyle Flood, special there, right? Big humans. And so Junior Angilau being one of the strongest guys on this football team and one of your better run blocking guys, that's, I could see the identity and the profile, especially with the rest of the offensive line, of where Sark, where Kyle Flood were headed in terms of how they wanted to establish that unit. Now with Jake Majors, you do get the benefit of his experience. He started a lot of football games here. He's a very smart football player, and he has added weight. But we also know the struggles he has against power. We're not going to sugarcoat anything, right? And so they're going to have to try to coach around and mitigate that particular weakness there that he has. Now, he can get out on the edge. He's smart. He knows the checks. I think Jake Majors will be beneficial for a Cole Hudson that plays next to him, who's also banged up right now. But I'm imagining Cole Hudson's going to be your right guard, or a Hayden Connor, who's a redshirt freshman, played a little bit last year. but these are young guys in the middle of that unit anyway. So at least Majors gives you that experience. I imagine, either Robertson or DJ Campbell, some of these other guys back up at center. But it's a tough one. But Kyle Flood and those guys, that's why they recruited the way they did, right? And that's why that group is big for situations like these. So I think that's how Texas tries to overcome that, is utilize Jake Majors' smarts, put some big guards right next to him, and help out where we're needed.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think you're right. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I just had a question for Steven. So I was jotting down some notes, Steven, while you were talking. So the way I see your line forming then is probably Kelvin Banks, left tackle, Cole Hudson and Hayden Connor as your guards. And then the other tackle would be a Jones, Carrick, whoever wins that job, and then sliding Jake back into center. And Clint kind of got lit up a couple of weeks ago when he mentioned DJ Campbell taking snaps at center. And they were like, why is DJ Campbell taking snaps at center? And then we did get a chance to talk to Scott Hudson, Cole Hudson's dad, the other day. And it sounds like Cole's going to be back as early as this weekend and definitely be back for that first game against the University of Louisiana Monroe.
Good.
But your thoughts about DJ Campbell possibly – you talk about big, right, and athletic, 320 pounds. Could you see him possibly taking that job, or is this Major's job now 100% foolproof game one, or do you see another guy sliding in there to get more competition before the end of the fall?
I think with the way the reps have played out, Jake Majors is going to start your season at center. Now, it's up to Jake Majors if he has that job for the rest of the season, quite frankly. And I do believe with Campbell, there's nothing wrong, especially right now at this point of his career, with him learning to play center. I think his future is somewhere in the interior of the offensive line anyway. So it is always a benefit to have him ready to go and have those reps. Maybe not to necessarily unseat Jake Majors, but it's August 16th and we're talking about significant injuries. Mm-hmm. So the chances of him playing or having to fill a role or go somewhere, it's very high, right? Yeah. And so, this is one of those things where you might as well get the kids ready now in terms of just developing that depth. I think it's more of a depth play than him unseating him, just because Junior took so many of the reps, right? Junior took a lot of reps. So at this point, you're getting Jake Majors ready to play, but you're developing the depth behind all those guys.
Yeah, I got a question for you, because I heard this the other day, right? Campbell's he's left-handed, right? So I'm over here Googling left-hand centers. Like how many are there out there? I'm not smart enough, I guess, about the offensive line to know that, can any of y'all explain the difference between a right-handed and left-handed center, and is left-handed center really not a thing?
I know it's unusual. It's like a left-handed catcher. You don't see left-handed catchers in baseball. You don't see hardly any left-handed throw. Even the guys that bat right throw right-handed at first base. You don't see any left-handed third baseman. It's very rare, but I think interior is probably more something Steven can speak on, but I know when the ball hits the quarterback, his hands are like this. And when the ball is snapped, if I can reach my hands up there, when the ball is snapped, it's sitting like this for the quarterback. So I don't know that as long as it gets in that position where the quarterback can take that snap comfortably, that it matters right-handed or left-handed, but it is very rare in my experience. Steven?
So from my standpoint, I played quarterback in high school. So I was very used to taking snaps. I knew. Taking snaps from under center. And from my perspective, it is a different feel. And you're looking for, as a quarterback, with that quarterback center exchange, it needs to be 10 out of 10 the same thing every single time, right? And so that's where those reps are so important in terms of feel on the laces of the ball, or however you're used to receiving the ball. You want to make sure that you're hitting that center and you have it lined up to where you're comfortable with how you're receiving that exchange every single time. So you're not fumbling or there's anything weird with that. Now, I do think with Campbell, again, you have time to rep those things. So at least to where it feels, it's going to feel different with the left-hander, just with how the laces are going to spin out. But with enough reps and enough time doing that, it's not like they're moving somebody mid-season. You see what I'm saying? If that was being done mid-season, then I think that would be something weird. Tracy brings up Creed Humphrey, who was one of the best centers and is already one of the best centers in the NFL. One of the things with the spin, so I was going to get to the shotgun as well, because we do both. It's all about the repetition. That's what it really comes down to, because I'm sure OU's backup center was probably right-handed if I had to take a guess, right? But at the end of the day, it's the reps and making sure that the revolutions on the ball are consistent. Where we had other guys move to center like a Rafidi Girmay and some of the other names you've heard before, or even way back to like Doyle, they weren't consistent snapping the football. So at least with a left-handed guy, even if the spin is different or the feel is different under center, if it's consistent coming back to me, they shouldn't really have too many issues.
Yeah, and that's I heard that the other day. Go ahead, Jeremy.
If I jump on a couple of things Steven said, and that's depth, right? So I've never, of course, you want your best 5 starters, but on the offensive line, things are going to happen. Guys are going to get rolled up on. Guys are going to, have to come out of the football game, and 8 or 9 guys, depth-wise, is what's necessary to really compete in my mind. And then going back to the snap is the thing that starts to play, right? So that has to go off, right? You don't want quarterbacks fumbling the ball, from the center exchange, because the play never gets started. So, definitely important to find that guy who can be consistent in getting the ball back to the quarterback, whether it's shotgun or under center. I
got like 5, real quick. You got to think Kyle Flood knew that DJ was a left-handed guy before he brought him in. You figured they know all that stuff, and he's been playing him, at center and getting him snaps at center since he got there. So if Kyle Flood don't think it's a problem having a left-hand center, Clint don't think it's a problem either.
Mm-mm.
All right, I just want to thank Dylan Alexander for the $9.99 super chat here. Just want to support you guys real quick. Can't listen until later. Hook 'em, brother. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you supporting us. You had a thought, Steven?
Oh yeah, just to finish this point, it's not a point if there's no issues with exchange. If he's in there and there's never an issue with exchange, nobody's talking about it. We don't talk about Creed Humphrey being a left-handed center because he doesn't have issues with exchange with his quarterbacks. So If there's no issue with the exchange, we're not talking about it. If there's an issue with the exchange, then we'll come back to the left-handed thing. That's kind of how it's going to happen.
And I just think we'll come back with he doesn't have the ability to snap the ball. To me, left-handed, right-handed, if you got a guy like Creed Humphrey doing it at a high level, I don't think it's a left-handed, right-handed thing. It's just performance or an inability just to do it, regardless of handedness. So let's go over to wide receiver. So we touched on Angelau, the absence of Angelau. If we could, like you said, we got a chance to meet Isaiah Naylor at Burn Orange Heroes at the High Five a couple of weeks ago, and what an awesome kid. Again, his story, we've talked about it. He told it to us, and we told it to the guys that watch our show. Getting found in the classroom at Arlington Lamar. Really wasn't interested in football. Coach said, "Hey, would you give it a try?" Of course, he does what a 6'3", 215-pound athlete does. Goes out there, performs. Doesn't get any really what we would call good Power 5 scholarship offers. He gets up to Wyoming, puts together a season that's Blitnikoff Award worthy. So there you go, worthy. Blitnikoff Award worthy, and comes down here and is penciled in is the second guy. Him and Xavier Worthy, 1A, 1B, gives you a different threat from Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington. Of course, Worthy's that game buster on the outside, and Whittington finds holes in the slots of zone defenses and is pretty sure-handed and makes plays when he's healthy. But he was a different puzzle piece, and it's not like we don't have guys behind him that have that size, speed, dimension. You talked about, Troy O'Meary, been in the program for 3 years, never played a down of regular season football for the University of Texas, but same type body. You talk about Ajay Hall, recent transfer from Alabama, comes into the program, dealt with some stuff last week. Is currently indefinitely suspended. Steve Sarkisian said yesterday, working with the family, going to find his way into the program at some point as long as he does what we asked him to do. So your thoughts, and then, of course, Brendan Thompson, Tariq Milton, and Casey Kane and other names. I mean, in my mind, this receiver core, when we talked about it in our position preview, is as deep as any in the conference. And so your thoughts on, of course, losing a guy like Isaiah Naylor and who steps up in his absence.
So they're kind of going with the Casey Kane thing, or they've talked about Casey Kane, being there, and if not for Ajay Hall and what happened last week, he would probably be the guy in that spot right now. But like you said, he's got to work his way back onto the team and make sure he stays out of it, right? So with what we currently have on board, Troy, I'm happy that Troy is practicing. I'm happy to hear the things I've heard. But Troy's still wearing a full knee brace. Let's just be honest here. We have to be able to regulate our expectations as to what they're going to be looking for from that particular position. Milton, who is a veteran and understands the Big 12, I think will play a big role here in that mix. But I do think that there is, with the injuries that he's had at Iowa State, he's not, I don't know if that's the same Tariq Milton from 2019, so to speak. Right. I think he's still a really good football player. But what I'm getting at here is they have an opportunity over these next, however many, 19 days or 18 days, however it is, to at least figure out what, more so to me, I'm more so talking about personnel, right? Like who's playing in 12 personnel? Because I really feel like that's where we're going to be really, really living out of, especially with, we start talking about like a Jatavian Sanders who could be now my second option legitimately in this offense, or leveraging these running backs more if we start going more 20 with what Brendan Marion likes to do. So or 21 personnel. So I don't even think the workload even just kicks right to that replacing Isaiah Nayor. I think it's by a group. Now, Kane, I think, is going to be one of those guys where we've seen him. You like how he's progressed within the program. I think he was like all last year, he was always on the depth chart in the 2 deep. Didn't really get to play a whole lot, but you're encouraged with how the staff feels about him. And we just haven't seen it, right? We haven't seen it live and in games. My fear, though, with these guys is I don't want to end up last year where we had guys out there opposite of Worthy that the defense didn't even really need to pay that much attention to. I want to have people out there that are threats, and I think that's why somebody like a Brennan Thompson, even if he's not necessarily polished there, can at least play opposite of that, to where you have to have a safety peeking over there, and I still maintain my space if I'm Steve Sarkisian.
I just want to give y'all a quick update. I'm scrolling through here. I'm on the 247 board. They're doing an update here. I'm just going to kind of run through who the first line, who's running with the ones with the offensive line. Y'all ready for this? So left tackle, Carrot, and then you have Connor, Hayden Connor, Majors at center. Campbell is starting at right guard tonight. Obviously, Hudson being out, so this is going to give Campbell an opportunity to get some reps. And then Jones is your right tackle, and then Bakes and Neto working in with the ones at this point. I think it's just a matter of time that Banks probably takes over that left tackle role the way he's come in. But I think it's almost just as important, not that you want to see somebody get injured, but to have Devin Campbell be able to take reps with the ones at this point to be able to show what he can do. And I think that added growth is iron sharpens iron. And I think if you're getting consistent reps with these ones and twos, you can feel comfortable to be able to run 8, 9 guys in the Big 12 when it's time to play. But go ahead, Jeremy, you got a thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to problem solving, because Rod Baber said this yesterday when on his show with Mike Harge there on 104.9. And please hit that like button. I left that up there for a reason, because like Nino said, there's 170 folks in here right now. There's 69 likes. Please hit that like button.
Hit the like button.
It's right under the expectations. If you see 22 expectations, it's right under there. It's a little thumbs up. Please hit that. There's 165 folks in here. There's only 70 likes. And it's free. Thank you, Steve. Problem solving, right? So I should have asked you, who do you see being the third receiver, right? That should have been the question I asked you. Because then you would have probably given me a name, and I really don't want a name. I want problem solving, as Rod said yesterday. These coaches, because everybody was saying, what do? We lost Isaiah Nayor. We don't have the ability to stretch the field. What are we going to do? And we talked about it on our post-scrimmage show the other day about Jatavian Sanders and Jaleel Billingsley and their ability to flex and that 12 personnel. Rod came back behind us yesterday and was talking about problem solving. Whatever personnel group you have to do to, like you said, to get respect from the defense, whatever scheme you've got to run so that the defense has to worry about, just like you said, threats across the field, is what Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood were brought in here to do. Problem solve. A team like Texas with and again, we're getting there. The 22 class, we talked about the offensive line. We talked about, that being Sark's first class and being number 5 class. We talked about the 23 class and it being number 3 and Jonte Cook getting his third, or being the 5th star, got his 5th star today. So they're bringing in athletes. So I say all that to say this, that one receiver shouldn't make or break Texas offense. If you believe that Texas had the best offense in the Big 12 before Isaiah Nayor and Junior Angelau got injured, you should trust these coaches enough to make the adjustments to still feel that way. Now, if it becomes 5, 6, if we're talking about, injuries, there's certain position groups like we talked about the other day at tight end. That's a small room. You can't take too many injuries there. You're going to see a degrading talent. But that receiver room is deep. You already had a mismatch of offensive linemen that you're bringing into the program to compete with these contributors. Again, he was a 5th-year senior. He's experienced. He's a 4-year starter. You hate to lose him, but I still feel like this offense can be productive despite those 2 losses. Your thoughts on that? Problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I was going to get to, especially with didn't Sark lose Jalen Waddle in the middle of the season at Alabama, that national championship year? And Waddle and Devontae Smith were cooking. Yeah. And that's where you start to see Najee Harris all of a sudden have 43 catches. Jaleel Billingsley starts to get showcased on those deep crossing routes. Devontae Smith gets force-fed, yes, but John Mechie steps up. So they figured it out in that scenario. Jalen Waddle was a top 6 pick that went down, right? And so problem solving, I couldn't agree with that more. Every coach, at least the good ones, when you come up against these scenarios, you're not always going to have your full menu, and that's okay. That's football. Just like you're going to go up against a defensive coordinator who's going to be shorthanded at some point during this season, and you get to exploit these things and see how people adjust. I think scheme, more importantly than anything else, is your way out of this. I think, honestly, if you're talking about like a pecking order, if I were to say to start the year, I would say it's definitely Worthy. And then I'm looking at Jatavian Sanders and Jordan Whittington as my next 2, because I do think Jordan Whittington could still play in 12 personnel. I was already having him considering playing him in 12 personnel, even when Nair was healthy. Mm-hmm. The question I think that people have is, when we go 11 personnel, when we go 10 personnel, who is that boundary guy, right? And so as long as that guy is able to do his job, whether it's Casey Kane, whether it's Hall when he gets back, I don't think that person has to be all world if my tight end steps up. If everybody else collectively around can step up and you have the opportunity to showcase those guys, you can flex these running backs, by the way.
I was going to say 5.
So I went back and watched Steve Sarkisian. Somebody, I forgot, I think they put it in our content creator chat that Steve Sarkisian, what was it? The coaches clinic he did in 2019 when he was at Alabama. And he always goes back to this, right? It's just about your tight ends, not about your wide receivers, but the running back is the most uncovered person on the football field. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, just spread. You could easily, you could take 2 running backs in Roschon and Bijan and split both of those guys out because they got the hands to be able to catch the ball. That's what I'm not worried about. I'm really not, honestly. Yes, Isaiah Nair is a big loss to this program. What he was able to do at Wyoming. But if there's a head coach and a wide receiver coach that are able to make this thing run at the same speed that it was going to run with Isaiah Nair, this is the coaching staff to do that. It's just, what do you do with the pieces of the pie or pieces of the puzzle that you currently have versus the ones you don't have?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, just talking about somebody who could stretch the field, who may not be on the field in 12 personnel as a conventional running back, is Keelan Robinson. Getting the ball out in space, have him running those deep routes, those 7 routes, 8 routes, 9 routes to stretch the field, because he can outrun anybody. Same thing with Brendan Thompson. You want to have a deep threat, put a guy out there that runs a 10-200 meters. So I think, like I say, stretching the field, Stark's offense is stretching the field both length and width. Like he wants to use all 50 yards wide, and as long as they need to go deep, and it works. It's just up to these quarterbacks to pick out the right options pre-snap and get the ball to them, and then they'll do their thing. I think there's still like weapons. Like we talk about 5, we talk about 2, we talk about 7, we talk about 24. 20. When everybody thought Roschon's injury was long term, it was like we got comments that Jonathan Brooks is a better running back than Roschon Johnson, which I couldn't disagree more because of what he brings as a pass protector, what he brings in so many different facets to the game. But I'd say that to say there's still a plethora of weapons on this football team, and you got one of the most prolific play callers in college football. It's can the quarterbacks read it pre-snap and get the ball where the ball needs to go.
I want to say something about this comment real quick. 192 people wanted 96 likes. If they get 104, if we get 100 more likes in here, at Nino's Corners Sports is going to pop in tonight. That's what he heard. There's a possibility. There's a possibility. It's as simple as Jeremy sending out
a button click.
Yeah.
It's a button click away.
To Nino Corners Sport. If he's available and he's ready to go, absolutely, man. The more the merrier. I want to tell people we're actually doing this show because some of the comments are going to be related to that you're going to see pop up are going to be related to the open practice. So I want to let everybody know that this is exactly when this is happening during open practice. So I may pull up some comments about Quinn Ewers is actually running with the 1s right now versus Hudson Card. Hudson Card's running with the 2s. And I think that is the next topic of conversation that we want to talk with Steve about, man, is this quarterback position and where does he think it's going? How does he think it ends up? Right now, I'm not going to lie. I had Quinn winning it out of the first scrimmage. That was an absolute disaster on my part. It sounds like it sounds like a coin flip, but I also want to say this, Steve Sarkisian is going to tell it how it is. I don't think he's so much, a coach speak guy. Sometimes I think they do that. And I think it was important for us to hear after you hear about 3 interceptions and 4 fumbles, that the damn quarterback room's not a disaster because Quinn Ewers hasn't pulled away from Hudson Card. He said, absolutely, these guys are playing really, really good football. They're operating at a high level. And when Steve Sarkisian says that his quarterbacks are operating at a high level, to me, that means they're doing really good things, but they need to clean up some of the mistakes they're making. Your thoughts, man, on this quarterback position?
Yeah. So Tracy said, why are we worried about the offense? Because that's the strength of this football team. So we have to spend some time talking about this. And right now, with some of the things that have gone on and quite frankly, the practice reports, there are concerns, and we need the offense to hum at a certain level. Like the expectations for the offense are significantly greater, I would say, for this football team than they are for the defense right now. I think we want the defense to improve, but from an offensive perspective, yeah, we need to spend time talking about this. So that's why we're worried about the offense, Tracy. Now, getting to the question that Clint asked, with the quarterback situation, again, not seeing the practices and what these interceptions look like and, taking care of the football. And now you're seeing reports about, Quinn being, laid back, and it's more of body language. Sark talks a lot about body language. I think one of the things is they really want to put this out there for him to really earn, because to me, Hudson Card, again, been in this system a couple years. He had opportunity several times last season to really prove that he can be the guy or show the capability to be the guy. But yet here we are right now, kind of locked in this back and forth. For me, my outlook is very simple. And I think Steve is kind of in a catch-22 if you look at what he did last season, right? Because last season he went with the younger, less experienced guy, but that had more arm talent. He went with Hudson Card over Casey Thompson. And now here we are in a kind of that situation for Hudson Card is now reversed. So I'm looking at it from a standpoint of Hudson Card, to me, has to be definitively better than Quinn Ewers in order to really earn this job. To me, he needs to be definitively better. Like, it needs to be clear to everybody, also from a consistency standpoint, because I already know, and quite frankly, I've already seen what my ceiling looks like with Quinn versus what it looks like with Hudson. But if Hudson is consistent day in, day out, and there's no turn, not only are there not turnovers, but he's playing decisively. His feet are under control. He's not taking sacks, which also can lead to strip sacks. And the offense is just moving, then I don't have a problem starting that guy if Quinn is still behind. But if they're neck and neck and this guy has more experience and we're going to be young anyway, then I'm going with Quinn. That I don't have to think about that, me personally.
I think you're right, Steve. I think you're right, and I think that's looking at the entire team. And we'll get to defense in a minute, but that's something like talking about Jalen Gilbo, right? It nickel or corner, right? To me, you have these offensive linemen that have been in the program for a long time, and they played their heart out, but at some particular point they met their ceiling, right? So to me, I'm with you. If you have an opportunity to play your young guys now, you can almost be more forgiving in the way that your season goes and moving forward if you're determined to play your young guys and say, hey, we know that there's going to be some hiccups along the way, not just at the quarterback position, at the offensive line position. I think that's exactly the way you do it. And Steve Sarkisian said it multiple times. If we're even, right, if you have a guy that's experienced and you have a guy that's not as experienced and they're both even, I'm going to go with the higher trajectory guy, man, the guy that has the higher upside, because, again, some of these linemen have probably already met their ceiling. You can't be in a college program for 3 years with the same offensive line coach and expect, and then people go back, well, that tells you can't develop players. Absolutely not. It means that their development is at this particular point, they can't go any higher than what you've developed them. And if you got freshmen that are coming in like a Kelvin Banks, it's like the dude that has a higher upside as a left tackle than what you currently have on the 40 acres and playing at DKR. I have to go with that guy regardless of what the hiccups you're going to see.
I just don't get paid by the University of Texas. I'm not a coach. Steve Sarkisian is. He gets paid by the University of Texas to win football games. Brendan Marion gets paid by the University of Texas to win football games. I want to put the best 22 that can help me win football games on Saturday, regardless of classification. And like you said, if they're even, I got to go with the higher upside guy because the potential is there. And what makes him different is the repetitions, right? That the reason why they're even is because probably that senior or that upperclassman had more repetitions, more game repetitions, more practice repetitions. He had 3 more years in the program. So, but bottom line up front for me in my pace plan, because he was talking about conditions checks a little bit earlier. I'm gonna use some military terminology. So pace plan is your primary plan, alternate plan, contingency plan, emergency plan, and that's the way I've got to line my football team. I got a primary plan when I'm talking about problem solving. Then I have an alternate, contingency, and then emergency. And I don't want to ever get to that emergency plan. That means I've lost 4 offensive linemen out of my top 7, and now I'm at emergency status. But I just want the best 22 to play. And I know we're going to talk about special teams and the best players need to play, because I heard Quan say that today. Me, Michael Griffin, Michael Huff, we all played special teams. And it was necessary for us to take advantage of that third phase of the game. But Tracy, defense is on the run sheet. It was actually the next topic, is defensive improvement. And we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, right? We talked about the upper, just this group, right? The upperclassmen who've been in the program, talking about Coburn, talking about Sweat, talking about Moro Jomo. These guys have been in the program. A lot of seniors and juniors on that defensive line. And then you got guys like Alfred Collins, who've been here for 2 years, played 2 different positions, trying to figure out where he fits best. Is he a 3? Is he a defensive end? Where does he best fit this football team to get that best 3 or 4 defensive linemen on the football field, depending on the front they run? And then we talked about the linebacking core and the ability for Diamante Tucker-Dorsey to benefit. His ability to be instinctive helps Jalen Ford play that weak side a little bit better and call the defense. It allows DeMarvion to do his thing, and they can put him all over the place. And then we talked about the secondary and their ability to cover. They seem like they want to put 5 cornerbacks in the secondary and cover the pass game. And if they're good tacklers like Anthony Cook, it's a bonus. So Stephen kind of ran down our opinion on the defense. Your opinion on the defense, sir?
So it's funny. I was watching y'all are going to cringe when I say this. I was watching the Arkansas game last night. And I know, I just brought up some trauma for some of you in the chat. It's okay. Okay. We got to learn from these things. And we have enough time now to reflect. But this defense and watching the Arkansas game, they really played with a good level of intensity to start that football game, really through the third quarter. And I think as much as we talk about personnel, I think as much as we talk about what scheme we're going to run with PK and how he's going to adjust his scheme and things of that sort, that staff has stayed together. The changes in staff came on the offensive side of the ball, not the defense. I really think it's as mental as anything with this group, because when they were in that football game, I mean, they held up. There were times where they had sudden change of possession. I think off a Hudson Card strip sack fumble, they held to 3 in the red area. They were physical in the run game. And then you start to see the game gets away from them a little bit, where they're not getting the support and those points. And then they unravel mentally. People are falling asleep in coverage, not paying attention, things of that sort. So from an expectation standpoint, I think you have to expect that with the guys they have coming in collectively across the board, influx of talent, but also having the continuity there, I think you showed them some points of last season where it's like, guys, there were several quarters where we were playing really good football. I know I've talked about on my channel them being ranked in the hundreds and the yards per play and the points per possession. Everything was terrible when we look at the metrics. I am not shying away from that. However, when we start to contextualize some of this stuff, there is stuff there to work with if we're looking at it. And so I look at this, a name that's come up a lot on here, Tucker Dorsey. I've been envious of other Big 12 schools that have those small-ass middle linebackers that seem to get everywhere all over the place. And there just seem to be menaces. And I feel like we finally have somebody like that understands how to play linebacker, and I think that can perfectly complement a Jalen Ford, who is going to have a lot of, decisions to make, but hopefully gets more help up front with, having some dogs in front of them and maybe simplifying a few things schematically. But they have stuff to work with. I'm not expecting them to be gangbusters and have people with 12 sacks and all of these things. But I do think that if we can get what that defense looked like the first half of the Arkansas game, the first quarter of the OU game, and where they forced a quarterback change, all of these things, there's moments there where you're just looking for the same thing we talked about with the quarterbacks, guys. Consistency. Hookham said it in the comment. It's consistency.
Yeah.
Don't fall asleep.
Yeah, I want to say something about that, because I actually went back and watched a whole bunch of games, Steve, and I keep calling Jeremy, and I'm like, damn, man, you go back and watch this defense, right? You were up on every damn team at the half, and you were talking about sudden change. Baylor was a perfect game for that. There was all kinds of sudden change happening before that first half, and they kept them out of the end zone. They created a turnover. I think Foster had an interception. They got the ball back again in the Southern in Texas. When they played well on defense last year, they played really, really well. And I think you said it best. The intensity was there. How do you get that intensity from just the first and second quarter, where you're leading at the half to it falling apart in the second half? And I think you're right. I think it's mental adjustments. Go ahead, Steve.
They also had a significant issue with strength and conditioning. And they had a significant issue with getting worn down. And I think because they weren't mentally tough, as we saw in the locker room, as we saw from Bo Davis himself and all of these coaches, it was when the adversity hit and it was so much that they just tapped. They tapped at the end. I'll be honest, they tapped at the end of the TCU game. We just got lucky, and Bijan Robinson just did 4-minute drill himself. But the defense, they were tapping at certain points. So if we can figure out how to – that's why DeMarvion Overshown has talked so much this offseason about their conditioning their mental while they're doing their training drills, right? When we're tired, throwing something at us where we have to think, where we still have to be in position, where we still have to understand what our keys are, right? Hey, corners, just because you haven't seen a ball in 2 quarters doesn't mean that the ball's never going to come your way, right? Being ready and anticipating the opportunity. One of the things you saw in the Arkansas game is they kind of lulled to sleep on the outside, and then boom, Jamison gets hit with one. Boom, now Traylon Burks is running wide open, right? But they had it contained early in the game, right? And so these things, it's also conditioning your mental across the whole board with this defense. There's a lot of improvement that can just come from those things alone and not even improving personnel. I'm serious. Like, just rewatching a lot of this stuff, I see things they can do better.
I see a glimmer of hope that look better than what it did last year. You really do. And the trajectory can't be nothing but up at this point with this defense, you know? And I think if you give us a defense that falls somewhere between in around the 50-ish with this offense, you have a successful season. I think over the last couple of days with these injuries, I think we started having a meltdown. It was like everybody started catastrophizing, like, holy shit, we just lost these players. We're not going to be able to pick up the pieces. But I think you built that depth. That depth may come from freshmen that don't have any experience, but they're talented people. I think we have enough wide receivers out there. I think if you get an average to good defense this year and you have an offense that can put up 38 points a game, you're going to win a whole lot of football games. That's what I expect from the defense, is average to good.
All right, I'm going to throw something at y'all real quick because football is played in 3 phases, right? And we talked about OU. We talked about Baylor. We didn't talk about Oklahoma State. But Texas offense jumped up on in those 3 football games. And then we talked about Sark's ability to script and how they come out hot. And then defensive coaches make adjustments. And we go a couple of quarters with a bunch of 3-and-outs that has the potential to wear out your defense. So I think that's another piece too. We didn't play a whole lot of complementary football last year where the defense would get a stop and the offense would go down and score. It was a whole lot of, like you guys talked about, back and forth. Like, we'd be hot and then our offense would go 2 quarters without doing anything. Defense would be on the field for 2 straight quarters, wearing themselves out. So I think depth's going to be an issue, like you said, Stephen, with the strength and conditioning. But I think the offense has to do better about being more consistent over a 60-minute game versus hot streaks and cold streaks. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's this offense in certain areas was phenomenal. If we look at situations within a football game, opening script, pretty much every game. Arkansas, no, but for the better part of the season, we all consistently felt good how we were coming out opening script, which was a far cry from the previous regimes we've had. So it's something that a lot of us as fans noticed right off the bat, how effective we were with forcing defensive coordinators to immediately go to plan B and plan C. So that area was tremendous. I thought at certain points, even the shots that we missed throughout games where we just weren't able to execute, we saw people running wide open. So like, I'm not beating up Sark as much as he does have to get better with adjusting to when people counter to him. And he has to get better, to me, situationally, to your point, Jeremy, is when we have a lead or we have momentum or we need to give a rest, we need to be able to put together an 8-play, 10-play drive. We do need to be able to do that. We do need to be able to be good in 4-minute drill. I'm sorry. Like, if they were good at that, and again, the OU game, for example, you should be able to eat up 7-8 minutes of the third quarter, just running the football and converting third downs. I mean, it's not that crazy deep to me. But Texas wasn't effective in those areas offensively, which then flips your time of possession upside down. And I'm not saying we're always going to win the TOP battle, but we have to get better at dominating time possession. It needs to be something to pay attention to. Like, we can't just let people have run 90 plays against the defense. And it's like, why is the defense bad? Well, I mean, it's just how it goes, right? So
because I talked about this, the 66 plays per game, and I said if we could just get that to 70 between 73 and 75, we can run 5 to 7 more offensive plays per game. because we were at the very bottom. I think there's 131 D1 teams, and we were like 100 out of running plays. And now, again, I love the explosives. I'll never take back a one-play drive where you hit Xavier Worthy for an 80-yard bomb and put 6 points on the board, and they kick the extra point, and they get the ball. I'll never take that back. But at the same time, I think we have to run more plays in order to, like you said, get the defense a little bit more rest. I just hope they're deep. Like I said, that's why I think a 3-man line, it should be their base. And I talked about the other day what would be my 2 deep as far as a 3-man line, because, again, Overshown has the ability to drop down, pre-snap, disguise, and do some different things. And you still keep 5 in the back with if whoever is – whoever's the star can play like Anthony Cook did last year around the line of scrimmage. I think a 3-man line is the way to go, because I think it's the deepest group you could possibly have. Putting it together 3-3-5, but
it's more complementary to everything you're trying to do. To what you're
to the
saying.
skill set we have.
It's definitely more complementary. I also believe this, to your initial point about coaches and making, and this is really on the coaches, right, to problem solve. They have to be the ones to say, you know what, guys, we're not going to be bad situationally at football anymore. And all 3 facets of the game, because it's really what it comes down to. The defense in certain areas of last year, they had moments where they flashed and they were good. The offense, there was some things situationally that they're already excellent at. But the 2-minute stuff, the 4-minute drill, when we need to hold the ball a little bit to cool off the other team, when they've got – maybe they just scored back-to-back touchdowns, or they got a touchdown or a field goal, and we need to go on a 6-minute drive. I'm not saying I don't want to hit on my shots. I love that about Sark. So, but I am saying is, if you miss on the deep shot on 1st and 10, that drive can't then turn around and be a 3-and-out because we missed our shot, right? If we miss our shot, I want to get into, hey, we're able to still run the football and do what we need to do and get our plays in.
All right, so I got kind of beat up on Twitter a couple of weeks ago when I said I posted a picture of Bijan Robinson, and I said this man needs to get 25 carries a game, and I got, you're going to overwork him. Why would we beat him up 25 carries a game? And I went back to his freshman numbers. He touched the ball under Tom Herman's last year, his freshman year, 8 times per ball game. Last year he touched the ball 18 times per ball game, 16 carries, two receptions per ball game. Is it unfair for me? Because, again, I want to run at least 5 to 7 more plays. I want to get up that 75 and close to that 80. And when Bijan gets the ball, Bijan makes things happen. Is it unfair for me to ask him to get 25 touches per game? Stephen, in your opinion?
No. I mean, my thing is, as long as I'm dictating what those touches look like. Now, I don't want to – I'm not on board with 25 carries every single week if it's, 20 of them are inside zone, right? I want to have my back be able to get to the edge and dictate what those touches look like. Now, if 5 of them are screen passes, he's getting hit on a slant route where he gets lined up with a linebacker, the wheel route like we saw at times, which sometimes that wheel route that we would run with him would be like people wouldn't pick it up.
Wide
and
open.
Sark has shown wheel routes even out of 12. I'd like to see us get back to stuff like that. Those are plays where Bijan Robinson's not even getting tackled, right? Like he's just running into the end zone, and that's a touch. So you can give people a heavier diet and still take care of their bodies. You can do both. I know that sounds crazy, but you can do both. It's what I don't want to see, though, are the inefficient, and the analytics people will agree with me on this, 1st and 10. You're banging duo or inside zone, and it's not effective. You haven't loosened up the defense at all, and there's no diversity there in your run scheme. I think that's a waste. Now, the other thing is this. The other point I'll add is this. I will give Sark credit. Historically, in big games and depending on the opponent, he's not afraid to put a heavier load on his running back or his receivers, whether it's Devontae Smith or Najee Harris. He will give them their touches. In those big games back at Bama, they got the football. Last year with Bijan, when he was healthy, you saw a TCU game, we had to go to 30 carries to win that particular game. I don't think he ideally wanted to do that every single week, But depending on the scenario, especially if there's a weather issue involved, TCU field got a little messy, it was a little rainy. Okay, cool. We can load the guy up with some touches this week. So I think it's situationally, but I think the average, I always look back at like Ezekiel Elliott, who was so dominant in college at Ohio State. And he was averaging around 22, 23 touches a game, but he was a dominant running back. And so if we can be around that number overall, even with the blowouts that Texas may get, I think we'll feel like Bijan's being properly used, but also we're taking care of his body.
I guess that's where I was going because Mock said my numbers were wrong because he missed 2 games. I guess more consistency in the number of touches he gets. He goes for 31 against TCU, and then a couple of weeks later he touches the ball 9 times. He's your best weapon on the football team. So, like I said, 20 to 25, like you described it, where I've got him in multiple positions on the football field, where he's slot, whether he's the tailback in a 2-back set. Like you said, more outside running versus, like you said, 1st and 10, hand it off. He's hitting a dive play in a 2nd and 8 because you didn't stretch or use your weapons the best way you could have. So yeah, diversify the way you get him the football, absolutely. But I think you got to be more consistent in letting teams on film see you utilizing him 20 to 25 times a game.
I just want to throw something in there real quick. So I actually went back and watched 2019 Alabama versus Ohio State, right? What I didn't see Bijan do is that fake orbit motion that Smith kept doing in that game, where he would come out, look like he's going to go in motion, and all of a sudden he stops on a dime and they're tossing it back out to him, and you already got the safety or cornerback, whoever's linebacker, going across the field. To me, I think that's how you get involved. He's got hands like a wide receiver. So just my 2 cents there during y'all's conversation on the running back.
You talking about Borland for Ohio State?
Yeah, dude, he had those dudes in a wash the entire time, man. Ohio State was nasty. And it just came back to that motion, that fake motion. He would run Devontae Smith out there. All of a sudden, Devontae Smith stops on a dime and comes back across. He don't even go across the field, just comes back. He tosses it out to him, man, and it's just a race to the end zone. One-on-one, Bijan's going to beat anybody on the outside. He's either going to stiff arm him, run over him, or he's going to run around him. So, to me, he's your best guy. And Steve Sarkisian says it. Hey, the running back is the most uncovered person on the football field. Nobody covers the running back. So, to me, it's not just about running. It's not just about running him the ball. It's screen passes, get him out there, those wheel routes, man. For somehow, some way, it's nobody's ever around him when he catches the ball on those. It's like a straight to the end zone.
I'm telling you, and the thing is, if you run that more, and people start, let's say they start taking a linebacker over there, they start taking a safety over there. I have more space in the middle of the field. There's a counter to everything. So I think some of what Sark does is I need to see a reaction from you, right? Now, if you can guard me because I'm not doing something, people talking about lack of motion, people talking about, lack of diversity and just the overall, sometimes he's taking too many shots or things like that. But if you do something to where I dictate a reaction, I can open up this side of the field. Texas does have the personnel more so than they even did last year. With or without Isaiah Nair, Jatavian Sanders is going to be a much better tight end for a passing game than we had at all last season.
I'm probably had in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Same thing with Billingsley though, too. Billingsley brings that same thing. He's a flex guy, man. He's a flex guy that's going to sit outside. You can flex him out, and he showed what he can do in the SEC, in the best football, in what you consider probably the best conference in all of college football. Billingsley be able to do things in that conference. So to think that he's not going to be able to come play, they're talking about Juan Davis doing his thing now. So the weapons are there. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting ULM as an opponent, but I kind of talked about this when we played Rice last year. And when you get an opponent that you should handle pretty well, and you get lucky enough to have them in the early part of the season, that you want to put as many different personnel groups, as many different formations, so you can just get that stuff on film. So it's something they have to prepare for. Not that you'll ever use it again in the season, because he's got a whole fall camp to figure out what his guys do well. But if you could put as many different personnel groups and as many different packages and as many different scenarios on film for defensive coordinators to have to worry about, That's it. That's a table setter. That's what you have to do as an offensive mind, and it works the same way in the defensive side. Now, 3-man front, 4-man front, putting 5 guys down,
Jeremy,
moving DeMarvion all over the place. What's up, brother?
Jeremy, you know who did that to us before we played them?
Who's that?
LSU.
Yeah,
I forgot who they played in the first game, but if you watch that first game they played, before people realized like Joe Burrow was Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase was Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson was Justin Jefferson and Taylor Farr, like all those guys, right? If you watch their first game, it looked like they were throwing the kitchen sink at that team. I don't remember who they were playing, but it was like, whoa, y'all are running all of this, right? And so we kind of realized like, oh, this isn't the same typical LSU Les Miles, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of SEC situation that I think a lot of people assumed out of them, or even what they saw from LSU the year before. That's when you saw like Joe Brady and that impact there. And so I agree with you in terms of putting as much out there for Nick Saban to consider, especially somebody that knows Sark so well and Sark knows him so well. It's going to be a chess match all the way through, and even as you get into Big 12 play.
So we need to see
personnel group.
So we need to see 10 through 22, right? 10, 11, 12, 13, 20, 21, and 22. All in the ULM game?
In as many different places you could put them.
Yeah.
And as many different numbers, as you could possibly put in those formations that you're talking about. And again, I'm not disrespecting ULM as an opponent, but again, it's a table setter for me. Like you said, Alabama's coming in next week. I want Nick Saban to have to burn the midnight oil, watching clips of Sark's offense, trying to figure out what their bread and butter is going to be. What are they going to line up in? What personnel packages do I need to have? And who do I need to practice in certain situations for the next week's opponent? Again, they've been doing this advanced film study on these opponents, like Steven said, since spring. But guess what? The game could change on you, right? So yeah, they might be seeing, because they're looking at old stuff, right? They're looking at Kansas State. They're looking at the last 3 or 4 games that we played last year and the personnel packages that we had. Again, you got an influx of freshmen. Again, 57 out of 85 are brand new. So they're going to be different players, but you also want to put those guys in different scenarios. Again, just to put it on film so he has to spend time looking at it and game planning for it.
So this is on our list of things to talk about from Mason Gantridge. Do you guys think the turnovers in the scrimmage are a sign that the quarterbacks are making bad mistakes, or the defense has made major improvements and taken advantage of those balls that are in the air and obviously stripping the offense of these fumbles? And by the way, I think real quick, I think from quarterbacks, I think they all have one interception apiece. I think Hudson Card, because they always try to throw the most interceptions on whoever they don't want to play. But I think Hudson Card had one, Quinn Ewers had one, and then Charles Wright on his first play with the third team had one. So each one of them threw an interception in that spring game, man. I think the 4 fumbles is what's crazy to me. Your thoughts, Steven?
So this is why I've been screaming about access and seeing more, because I don't know what that interception looks like, and I don't know who's it on. Is an interception automatically the quarterback's fault? Because I remember in the spring they said Quinn threw an interception one practice, right? And then we saw the play, we saw the clip, and Casey Kane ran a route where he got undercut by the DB, so it wasn't on him. I'm always going to be happy if my defense is getting turnovers, especially this group. So that's number one. I'm happy if I hear that they're getting turnovers and they're forcing stuff. They need their confidence up. We just spent earlier talking about one of the biggest things this defense needs to change is their mental. They've had moments where they've had success. They need to see themselves turning the football over. This team did not turn the football over against anybody enough. I actually thought our most explosive unit turning the ball over or causing game-changing plays was Pump Block by Jeff Banks. That unit was incredible last season, and we wasted it. They were getting the ball back for me. That Keelan Robinson and those killers over there. So I know Jeff Banks, he probably got something cooked up with Brennan Thompson over there now too on Pump Block team. going to your point about playing the best guys on special teams. But in terms of assessing quarterbacks and how they're looking to turn the football over, like, I don't know if Quinn Ewers is throwing a YOLO ball 50 yards downfield like Matthew Stafford and he thinks his one-on-one covers and somebody picked it off. I need to know where are these picks occurring? What does it even look like?
Yeah.
For me to really, really comment on, oh, that's a bad read, or, oh, we have an issue here, because some of this stuff, we have to be careful with the lack of access that we have. Versus the NFL, like, I see Daniel Jones throwing the ball right to the guy, like, oh, that's on him. Like, I can see it. You and I can share the tweet with each other, and we see the whole play. So that's why I'm saying with this particular situation, I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah. And all right, there's a lot of comments about the go-go going on here. How much go-go do we see against ULM? Do we see it at all?
Empty? If Rod Babers, when he jumped on Steve Sarkisian on media day, immediately when he started telling him about personnel groups, if Steve Sarkisian let that sink in, the Longhorns' history with empty personnel and how prolific they were with it last year sinks in, absolutely you'll see it. And I think that again, with Isaiah Nair going out, I'd have to redo my empty, but just off the cuff, Worthy, Whittington, and let's just say Milton, right? And then I got Bijan in the slot, and I got, let's say, JT Sanders or Billingsley, whoever you want. I'm good with that personnel group. Give me all the linebackers and secondary guys you want to throw at those five positions. I'm comfortable with that, but I'm also comfortable with Roschon and Bijan being in the backfield with two tight ends, one in line with JT Sanders and one in the flex with Jaleel Billingsley. Like I said, I'm throwing as much of the kitchen sink as I possibly can to put as much on tape as I can.
Go ahead, Steve.
Steven, you had your hand up.
Two things. Marlon, I understand INTs are a QB stat technically, but you know what I'm talking. Don't be dense, brother. You know what I'm talking about when it comes to an interception. You can't sit up here and tell me that a ball that ricochets off a guy that's supposed to catch it and the DB gets it. I'm saying in terms of, there's a difference between us looking at a box score and seeing an interception and how it gets graded in the quarterback room when AJ Milwee and Sark are walking through it and saying that's on you, or Brendan Marion saying that's on our guys. We own that pick. That's not on the quarterback. Yep. So let's not be dense there. That's number one. In terms of the go-go, I want to go back to a comment that got mentioned earlier about somebody said earlier in the comments, execution to me is more important than hiding stuff. I agree with that. You know what? If Nick Saban and Pete Golding want to study go-go offense, there's a lot of. It's not like it's never been seen before. They just haven't seen us do it. But they can go watch Howard University run go-go. They can go watch William and Mary and everywhere else Brendan Marion has been where he's been allowed to do it. I don't think he did it at Pitt at all. But every different places where he's been able to do it. I'm more concerned about, do my guys do it confidently? And do they execute and play fast? To me, again, using the LSU example, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, you don't think that everybody that was playing LSU knew that Joe and Jamar Chase was throwing 9 routes? Almost damn near the entire game. It was 9 routes, comebacks, and digs. What nuance was there with the LSU offense, really, where people were getting tricked? Or was it just like, I don't care, we're executing? I don't care if you've seen this play 30 times, we're executing it. I'm more concerned about how well are we executing stuff than just trying to pull the wool over everybody's head. Damn it, we should feel better. When you have talent, you shouldn't be trying to hide all the time. To me, hiding is when you're like a Navy and you got to run triple option. You got to run some sort of crazy nuance to throw people off because we don't physically have the people to compete against somebody straight up. Yeah. LSU didn't roll that way. They were like, Justin Jefferson, beat your man. I'm throwing it to you. Like, it wasn't deep. So I'm just saying, like, I'm getting a little frustrated with all the secrets out here. Like Sark doesn't run that deep post with the crosser coming. He's been running that since Atlanta.
Again, Steve, but you could go watch his coaching clinic on YouTube where he talks about his phases. This is how you go from RPO to you go to RPO to run game to now I'm asking them to run one route. Now I'm asking them to run multiple routes. And he said he never changes that stuff. It doesn't change ever, like zero. He's not going to change the play just to change the play. He's not going to ask a wide receiver to run a route this week that they weren't running last week. It is about execution. So those offenses don't change. What we're talking about is just putting out their different personnel packages so that they see these things, but again, executing the same plays that Steve Sarkisian already has in his book.
Right. Yeah. And we've been talking about this with, quarterback comes up the line of scrimmage, looks outside, looks at the backers, looks at the safeties, figure out, he knows what his progressions are pre-snap. If the look doesn't change from the defense, I got X over here. I got, regardless if it's Xavier Worthy or you slide Brennan Thompson in that formation, Brennan Thompson or Xavier Worthy's job is to beat that cornerback. And if that's the look that Quinn or Hudson gets pre-snap and it's open, execute it. If that's not the look you get, and I got to go to number 2, my alternate plan, understand that and execute it. That's all we're saying is when you walk, and the same thing on defense, right? You get a look from an offense. Hey, we're going to slide the line. We're going to walk DeMarvion down. Hey, Anthony, your job is now in the middle of the field because Jaron's going to drop down on the slot receiver. Football's football. Like I said, when they line up and you line up, your job is to figure out exactly what they're doing to you and execute. That's what it all boils down to. But what gives you a buffer is if your athletes are better than their athletes. If you could put a hat on a hat and like you say, I want to run the football when they know I'm going to run it. I'm going to put a hat on a hat. I'm going to knock you to the ground. I'm going to blow you off the line of scrimmage, and I'm going to get my 5 yards, and I'm going to hand it again and again, and I'm going to run that 4-minute offense that Steve was just talking about. I'm going to let Sam out and let y'all have it.
All right, go ahead, Steve.
I think sometimes people can actually mess themselves up and do too much. And now we have constipation of thought on defense or on offense, and all of a sudden now my guys aren't playing fast, when sometimes it's really not that deep. For example, Jeremy just brought up with the defense too. We didn't get killed on defense all the time because we didn't know what other people were doing. Yeah, there were times where we had bust. Yeah, there were times where we didn't play with, where we just flat out were asleep at the wheel or things of that sort. But there were times where people threw the ball downfield at us and we were there in man coverage. Like if I'm PK, there's times where people are attacking us downfield. If I'm PK, I'm like, there's nothing I would change here. You just didn't make the play on the ball, sir. Right? Like this is more of a technique problem than it is about hiding or disguising something. Like there's times on defense where you can look at the film and be like, everybody reacted the way that they were supposed to react. And we didn't make the play on the ball. Go look at the Marvin Mims catches in the OU game. Guys are on his hip. You're not making a play. Right? Like that's a totally different thing. So we gotta,
or the opposite. And you're not sounding your gap control. And you're trying to do somebody else's job, or you're trying to freelance. Just do what the play asks you to do. And trust that your buddy to your right and your left 100%. Is going to do their job. And so sometimes, like you said, I don't know if it was a fatigue thing. It was like we talked about a little bit earlier, it was a strength and conditioning thing where we just didn't have enough depth, or it was their first year in the system and they didn't have enough knowledge about what their assignments were, or when they had to adjust pre-snap, exactly what their responsibilities were. They just didn't trust their buddy to their right or their left and try to freelance and bust a play. And then you got Oklahoma's running back going out the back door consistently, and that's how they end up catching you and beating you in the Cotton Bowl.
Lincoln Riley ran the same play 3 times in a row in that football game.
Yes.
He was literally going like this. There's no secrets, right? It's can you get off your block and can you make a tackle? Like there's no or the first play, the very first play, I think we had a turnover to open. I think we had a turnover to start the TCU game, and TCU somehow either it was a turnover or a long kickoff, something. However, they started that game with a very short
long kickoff.
Yeah, they
scored. Long kickoff.
Yeah.
It was a long kickoff. And Zach Evans, I think it was like jet motion or something.
Yeah.
And Luke Brockermeyer has him wrapped up in the backfield. Like we actually did everything we were supposed to do, but he just didn't make the tackle. Like, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I dialed this up correctly. I'm sorry, guys. I had you went right to the play. We weren't fooled. There was no tricks. You had him for a 2-yard loss to start this drive, and he runs right through him for a touchdown. So that's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
That's what I'm telling you. That is the stuff I've been calling Jeremy about, like, over and over this week. Because again, you start looking at the defense, because that's where my eyes go. Right? It's like, what the hell did the defense do to be this bad last year? And again, you could see it. There were the calls were right. The execution wasn't there. Like on many occasions, 4th and 1. Williams taking it to the house on a 4th and 1 in the Oklahoma game. Literally had him stop behind the line. He does the stinky leg, and then all of a sudden he's running for a touchdown, and it's turning the momentum over. So again, people need to go back and watch. If you haven't gone back and watched this defense again, there's some positive things. That's why I'm not going to be negative tonight. There's some positive things. It's really just cleaning up the execution, being able to tackle guys when you need to tackle them, and making plays. That's what it's all about with this defense.
Jeremy,
this year.
How valuable is it for a defensive coordinator when I have an unblocked guy in the gap, in the A gap, and the ball's coming through, and my guy is unblocked? What else do we need? At some point, I got to have a conversation with my young men about making the play.
And that's why we talk about rolling this defensive line over, right? We talked about the guys that have been in the program for 4 or 5 years, and Clint's chronicled on the defensive line podcast or defensive line show. I could fall into 12 tackles. There are defensive linemen who started on this football team last year that got 12 tackles and 270-something snaps.
No, 398 snaps.
398 snaps. And they're number 1 on the depth chart this year. And there's a second guy who has 270 snaps, who has single-digit tackles. Again, I want interior pressure. I don't need you to sack the quarterback, but I need you to be in the quarterback space because I think I can get perimeter pressure from my edges, from DeMarvion, from hell, I can even with the defensive back's ability to cover. I think I can bring corners and get perimeter pressure. What I need is pressure up the middle from the 1 and the 3. And Byron Murphy, with 100 less snaps, got 3 more tackles, got 2 more quarterback pressures, and yet he sat on the bench. I'm not going to call individual names out, but I think you can add to this team. What is it called? Addition by subtraction. There's certain snap counts that players got last year that just didn't produce. And if I put another player who did produce with a lot less snaps, I think my football team gets better. So I'm going to pump the channel real quick because there's 250 folks in here. There's 175 likes at this point. There was a rumor out there that said if we got to 200 likes that Nino was going to join the show. Nino's telling us he's on a business trip. He's in a hotel. The Wi-Fi is not too shy. Yeah,
no, he's got Wi-Fi.
I know. So we might hit him up. So you get us to 200 likes in the show. I'll send the DM to Nino via Twitter and see if he'll join. But again, we have Steven here tonight from Fanatic Perspective, the GOAT for Texas YouTube, and couldn't be happier to have him. And I said all that to say this. Steven did a show the other day. It was 2 hours and 42 minutes long. And me and Clint did a show the next day, and we were like, we can't do 2 hours and 42 minutes. We're at 1 hour and 18 minutes, and it's because of Stephen Ngati. Stephen Ngati has that infectious personality, just makes you sit here and talk. I can't ever get Clint to do more than an hour. At an hour, he's
sweating.
My back is sweating too. That's why you see me stand up every now and then. But he did 2 hours and 42 minutes, right? We're in an hour and 18 because of him. We appreciate him coming on the show. If you have not subscribed to Fanatic Perspective or checked out his content, please get over there and do that. Again, he's got 11.5 thousand subscribers, I believe. We have 3.8. So you're probably not watching this channel, not surprised to or subscribe to Steven. But if you're not, please get over there, check it out. And while you're in here, please like the channel. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. We'd really appreciate it. Season hasn't even started. We're doing 1 hour and 19-minute shows over a lot of hypotheticals and subjective content. But guess what? On September 3rd, that changes. We're going to have the opportunity to comment on live ball games against other opponents, our too deep against their too deep, and it's going to get real serious real quick.
All right, real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the truth here. Oklahoma Sooner, man. He's been in the show. He's been in there talking, give me a boomer Sooner, all this other stuff, man. But very, very, very cool, man. Respectful. We appreciate you joining us tonight, man. And I'm not going to give you a boomer, but I'll tell you, man, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel before you leave out of here. We definitely appreciate it.
Please.
So thanks, man. Please do that.
Because we're going to the we're going to the SEC, and we know what our post game shows look like. With those, especially with Arkansas last year, how they will light up your show. So SEC hits different. We realize that. We'll be around for that. I know Steven will be around for that when we make that move. But yeah, just couldn't be more fired up about this. Again, we're talking hypotheticals and what we think is going to happen. Guess what? We're going to know for real come September 3rd. He called it product launch last year. I don't know what he calls it this year, but that's when it gets real for us and him, and can't wait for it.
Man, it's 2.0 this year.
It is? Okay.
Hopefully we got the bugs out, But I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. This is fun. I mean, I know we go for a long time and I can sometimes be long-winded in what I'm saying, but it's just, I feel like I'm visiting amongst friends. Anytime I'm getting to talk to the Lockerbie brothers, I'm just visiting. Honestly, it doesn't feel like we're running a show at all. And then I'm visiting with our friends here in the comments. You guys that are listening to us, you guys that have the same frustrations that we have, you guys that disagree with what we see, you guys that are like, oh wow, I didn't know how to articulate that, but I felt it. I saw that. I'm rewatching the games with you guys. We're all in it together. And
I'm working on getting Nino in here. I'm working on getting Nino in here. We'll see if he accepts.
Hey, I'm just waiting for my wife to come beat this door down here in about 20 minutes. Talking about, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? What you got?
Send her the link too.
What you need, Steven?
So I'm following Joe Cook's updates.
Okay. What you got?
On IT. And I guess this was a while ago, but I haven't seen it yet. And I'm sure the videos are going about. But they said Hudson Card throws a pick to Thompson, assuming Jaron Thompson, but Worthy stopped his route short in the skeleton drill. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Right? Because people get to see it, there's context to what the pick versus somebody writing down Hudson Card threw a pick. You see what I'm saying? Like, yes. At least there's some sort of, and I haven't seen the play. Maybe somebody out there has, but I'm just looking at the thing, and that's what Joe Cook wrote. Sort of, that's the play. Maybe somebody.
What the hell just happened here?
I'm just looking at
what just happened here?
Sort of, that's the play. Maybe somebody.
What the hell just happened here?
Nino got to cut his volume down first.
Oh yeah,
how's that? That's better.
Yeah, you got the feedback. What's happening, my man?
Hey man, Steven got you guys up here past your bedtime. Steven gonna be 3 hours.
Yep. Hey, and we give the people what they want, right? They ask for it, they shall receive, right? So let's pub Nino real quick. Nino's corner is running right there with us, just shy of 4,000. I know he has a goal just like we have a goal. 4K before opening day is our slogan. I know I can put that on his channel as well. So get him to 4,000 subscribers before opening day. Please do that for us. But we got Nino in here. Hey, let's hit Nino with the next topic. So Nino, if you're prepared, I know you probably ain't gonna see the private chat, see what we're going with, but we just talked about intercept. We talked about turnovers, right? And Steven wants all the turnovers he can get from his defense. And we know in a scrimmage that one side has to win and one side has to lose, and unfortunately they're both on your team. So how do you feel about the 3 interceptions and the 4 fumbles that Steve Sarkisian talked about? I know you did a reaction video to his press conference, and you might have already touched on this, but how do you feel about the turnovers by the defense?
All right, so first off, we had 4 fumbles, right? And, I think Coach said that one of the fumbles was the center getting the ball to the quarterback, and it wasn't a good exchange. It was turned into a bad exchange for the running back. So, look, the defense had a great opportunity to get the ball, right? But the offense has to get basically with the same kind of timing, right? So, you got a brand new quarterback. You got a brand new center at the time, probably. You got some backups in. You just don't know whether, like it's a backup in there. Is it your first string guys? Is it like Campbell kind of snapping the ball to, Quinn? So what is it, right? So, hey, it is what it is. But as far as the picks, hey, defense has to show up. I'm all for it, man. Get as many picks as you can. I have no problems with the Sark offense. I'm not worried about that side of the ball. But the defense, get as many as you can.
Love it. And Steve said the same thing, especially since they're coming from the linebackers, right? Here, Diamante Tucker-Dorsey getting the pick from the linebackers. Like, linebackers getting interceptions means they're not dropping deep in my mind. Like, they're getting them towards the line of scrimmage. So some kind of effect on the quarterback is happening. So like you, not as concerned about the offense
right now.
I know, because you don't know how to dress.
I'm getting bullied. All right, I'll be right back. How about this? I'll be right back. I was just the brother getting on here. I'm getting cooked in here, man. Golly. Get absolutely good. I'll be right back.
Hey, I like the ACDC shirt though. He changing mid-show. He must have something right there in his office to be able to change into. Sometimes we get caught doing multiple videos a day, and me and Clint will have a wardrobe over here with multiple shirts because we don't want to get caught in the same shirt in back-to-back videos.
That's funny.
Oh man, it's laundry day.
He said, "Who's the UNC fan on the panel tonight?"
That's fair.
That's
fair.
Steven probably don't even listen to ACDC.
I listen to them when I'm at the gym. That's when I get them. Is when they're on my playlist. Man,
that's funny.
Well, I think we burned through our topics. Nick, what do you want to talk about tonight? I think we touched everything. You got anything this hot that you're reading about? During the open practice or something that caught your eye today or ear that you want to talk about?
All right, so a couple of things that I'm seeing. Here's Steven. Is
that better? Is that better?
He cut his camera off to change.
He said the Gary Patterson effect.
Jeez, y'all here. Y'all, I mean, hey, Tracy, I'm not gonna lie to you, brother. You got me with the ACDC comment.
Hey, I like the shirt.
You probably need to listen to the music, Steven.
Yes, y'all supposed to be nice. I'm getting packed up.
Hey, you can't blame that on us. Tracy's on your channel and his channel just as much as he is on ours, so we ain't taking that one.
That's funny, man. I don't know. I was thinking about topics, man. Just like the O-line, right? So there's opportunity, man. We can have 3 or 4 freshmen play this year, at one time. I mean, just think about it, man. Just hopefully there's no more injuries, right? But let's be honest. We got folks saying that Ken Williams is pushing Christian Jones for right tackle right now. We already know that. Well, we don't know, but 9 times out of 10, I would bet my paycheck that Kelvin Banks Jr. is going to be the starting left tackle. Cole Hudson and Campbell are going to battle it out for, just like a guard position. And so if Christian Jones doesn't win that job and a guy like Cam takes that job, we're looking at starting lineup day one with 3 freshmen starting, guys. I mean, that's kind of scary. It's kind of exciting. These are 3 guys that are like blue chip guys, but hey, it is what it is, man. Hey, just put the young guys in, man. Let it work.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier, and you guys talked about, is it a free – I would never say with this Texas fan base anything's a free season, and we don't get paid to coach, right? And we know how hot the fan base can get with losses. Of course, we're fans, and we get just as hot. Does playing the freshmen what kind of – so if you throw our young guys out there and you consider them the best players, or you feel like they give you the best upside. Clint's at 8-4, 9-3. I'm at 8-4, 9-3. Does that change your prognostication? Does that change where you feel like the season will go as far as wins? And will the fan base accept that as an excuse on a Monday morning press conference from Coach Sarkisian that, hey, we're just playing the young guys. Like, we're going to have growing pains. They're going to get tired of hearing that after week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the season doesn't go as we expect it to, when you're 8-4, 9-3, and you're in the hunt for a Big 12 crown.
I don't think so, man. I don't think we get the free season. Sark's kind of like on the bad, basic situation here coming from Charlie Strong with the seasons that we had there, coming from Tom Herman. It's kind of like a win now, right? So, let's be honest. Tom Herman left his team at 7-3, right? And then Sark gets him and go 5-7. And so now, just looking at the perception, right? No, I don't think he gets like a free year just because he's starting freshman. Also, just for the simple fact that there's a transfer portal here now, right? And a lot of people were a little upset that we went out and got some skill position players, but we didn't address the offensive line in the transfer portal. Now, some can say, well, who was out there to get, right? So there was some guys there that were out there to get. Did Texas, actually push hard enough for them? So that's going to be like the conversation that's going to come up is, why do we put ourselves in this position to have to start 3 freshmen? How come we didn't try to shore it up in the transfer portal per se? I don't think we get that free year, guys. I think we got to come out here, and I think we got to win 8 games this year, because there's a team down the street, down in College Station, that started 2 freshmen last year, and they went 8-4, and they actually beat Alabama last year, right? So, hey, it is what it is.
Steven, your thoughts if 3 or 4 freshmen crack the lineup sometime during the season? Does it change your projection for the season's outcome?
Slightly, but at the end of the day, it still comes back to what we said at the very beginning, right? In terms of the coaches have to deal with adversity. The coaches have to overcome some of these things, regardless of unusual situations. I'm willing to be more forgiving in terms of play, and maybe that impacts a game here or there. But overall, I also expect in-season development from this staff. I expect people to get better as they get more reps as we go throughout the season. That's one thing I'm encouraged with the offensive line. I actually felt like they finished the year where they were a decent group. I don't think they were bad at the end of the season. And I think people look at games early in the year and some of the just horrible pass protection challenges they had, and we dismiss it as, the group was bad the whole year. That wasn't really the case. So if we can see that same type of in-season development with young guys, then theoretically, think about it this way. Baylor right now is probably, I think some people would say they're either the second or third best team on your schedule, right? Mm-hmm. You play them last at home. So my expectation for how you would look against Baylor in September versus how you look against Baylor in November is very different.
Yeah.
You see, in a positive way to Texas.
That was yours and Clint's argument when somebody asked us on the last show, would it be Tech or Kansas State that would be your toughest road game? And I know you and Clint took, position in the schedule later in the season. We should be, but I didn't look at it that way only because we saw it just this week. Conditions change, depth charts change. Players are gained, players are lost on both sides. So I was just looking up head up, Kansas State versus Texas Tech versus Texas. And that's kind of where I went because, again, end of the season, your team should be developed, but so should theirs. They should be getting better too. And then, like I say, that thing that we saw kind of creep up on Saturday rears its ugly head, and you lose, players. And hopefully we're healthy this year. I don't want to see Jordan Whittington miss multiple games. I want to see Troy Amir play a healthy season. I want to see all these linemen, minus Junior Angulau, come out and us not have to worry about switching them out every week or position moves from guard to tackle or guard to center because we're losing guys to injury. So I just because that's the one thing we didn't talk about pre-scrimmage. We talked about everything we thought we'd see, but we didn't talk about injuries. But unfortunately, this we saw on Saturday. This is a game where those things happen, and the coaches just have to be problem solvers to put the team in the best position to win. I know you got something, Clint.
Yeah, so real quick, April 318 brings up a good point, man. Texas' first half schedule is primed for a good development outside of Alabama, and I don't want to take anything away from UTSA because UTSA is obviously won a whole bunch of games last year, and they're going to be a good team. And they're just traveling, 50 miles from my house all the way up, up 35 to go to Texas. But you got you got ULM, Bama, and then UTSA, and then at Texas Tech, and then West Virginia comes here. You don't actually leave the state of Texas until at Kansas State on November 5th There's not a lot of travel going on between, obviously going to Dallas for the Red River rivalry. Iowa State comes here, to Austin. Yep. And then where we at? Oklahoma State. You go at Oklahoma State on the 22nd of October. But I think you have an opportunity to be able to build these guys up by really Texas Tech or West Virginia. You're going to know who you are as a program. You're going to know what your offensive line looks like when you face the number one team the second week of the season. You're going to know exactly, because that's going to be the best team you play with most talented players in the country. So you're going to have an idea who your program is at that point, but they know they're not going to see a defense like Alabama for the rest of the year.
And that's why folks. And that's why when folks were asking us, hey, do you sit the freshmen out till after Alabama? I'm like, no, that's their litmus test, right? That's their litmus test. Let them get after it, because like you said, there's not going to be another front seven like that you're going to face all year. So let them guys get after it, and whatever happens. Because again, that's the litmus test in my mind to tell you exactly where your program is at.
Yeah, those are incredible reps for those young guys. I do have a couple thoughts about the schedule up top, though. So initially, yes, UTSA was a bit of a, just knowing Texas's history with us playing to our level of competition. Initially, UTSA had my attention. However, they have to play Houston and Army their first 2 weeks. They can't do the whole thing of they're playing cupcakes and they get to load up for 3 weeks of prep on Texas. That's true. We've seen other teams in the past. They have to prep for Army. They have to prep for Houston. So with that being said, that to me is more of a conversation of whether Texas covers or not to be disrespectful, but I think that's more of a conversation of whether Texas covers than us getting upset. For me, schedule wise, the reason why I said Texas Tech, that's your first road game.
Yeah.
Joey McGuire at Texas Tech is scary, okay? Because that's his first opportunity
to prove a point.
To prove a point right off the bat. And it's still in September, and it's at a weird point in that schedule where OU is around the corner, but we're coming off of Bama, but you're throwing in Tech. All four of us on here know, and everybody watching know, they're going to make that game at night. And we know how it's been. I'm just saying that's why I'm a little. And the other thing with Tech is going back to the full-blown Leach air raid. They're going back to what they probably should have been, in terms of their true identity, if we think about the Red Raiders when they were at their peak. So I'm just saying, I'm not picking Texas to lose or anything like that. I'm just saying in terms of things that make me go, that's a game where I'm like, all right, that game is very different from the rest of the slate that we have, especially being all these games at home so early in the season.
So they want Chris Beard at the coin flip in Lubbock just to rile it up. And I guess my deal is with Texas Tech is we scored 70 points last year, and we probably could have scored 100. And if you talk to Rod Babers about PK's system and its effectiveness against the air raid, Rod could be more excited.
Yeah.
He said, bring it on. As many air raid teams as we can get in the Big 12 before we head to the SEC. He would love to see in the conference because of PK's track record against it. So like I said, I couldn't get 70 out of my head when I knew it could have been 100 if we wanted to be nasty last year against them, because I don't think their defense is that improved at Lubbock. Yeah, they might put some points up on our defense, but we could score 100 on them, being tongue-in-cheek there, being a little sarcastic. But I don't think they're going to stop us. We're going to have to stop ourselves up there. And again, Kansas State is always, and I remember Michael Crabtree, and I remember some of those games against Texas Tech when Mike Leach was there and they got the best of us. But Kansas State has always in Manhattan been a tough contest. It's always been a tough contest. So that's just my way of what led me to say Kansas State was a tougher road game than Tech.
I think Kansas State on paper is a better football team than Tech. I mean, they had – if you look at the Big 12 all-conference team, Kansas State had the most players on offense and defense more than anybody.
Yep.
And they
In the
got
whole
Deuce
conference.
Vaughn. And they got Deuce Vaughn. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Tired of seeing
Yes.
him.
Yes.
We got to see him.
My thing with us in PK, we still gave up 35 last year. And granted, the game was out of reach and all of that. But when Columbia came in there for Tech, he just started checking it. He started throwing the YOLO balls. All right, let's see how the Cougars are going to play the ball in the air. That's what concerns me. It's not even the coverage. Like, I know PK has the defense for it. I know we're not going to be giving up wide open post routes, right? People are going to be back there. Is my guy going to get mossed? Is he going to it's more so, are we going to be able to play the ball in the air when they start testing people? Because they will test people. And if we can respond to that, then I have no worries. I think we roll in those scenarios. But
those two games are eerily similar. You knock the starting quarterback out, right? Rattler goes to the sidelines. Tech starter goes to the sidelines. They start doing 50-50 balls. They complete a bunch of them. Problem was we kept scoring against we kept scoring against Tech. We didn't keep scoring against Oklahoma. But like I said, we had that one drought, that six drive drought there in the third and fourth quarter where we consistently gave them the football back and then couldn't stop the same old play. It was either 50-50 ball, and at the end of the game, it was that counter. But
all right, so next question. We asked Nino not too long ago, what do you think Gary Patterson's impact will be on this defense, man? Your thoughts, Steve? What are your thoughts, man? Gary Patterson.
I think with Gary Patterson, I hear the mentality stuff. I mean, I think mentality-wise, as well as evaluations from the portal, Gary Patterson has had his imprint on that. Like, Tucker Dorsey smells like somebody that TCU would have gotten in the past, and that's a good thing for the mentality of the defense. I think where Gary Patterson helps us is with Sark. The things he can't see, the blind
game plan against him. Yep.
Game planning. I think the things we talked about in terms of making sure that Texas, even for situational football purposes, is better. And playing, what we're doing makes sense. So that's where I really see Gary Patterson's value. Not to say that he won't have impact day-to-day with the kids or be able to give somebody a tip and he's respected 100%. But I really see Gary in terms of, hey, Sark, you love to hit that post in the third quarter. They know that too. So, hey, this is where you can do X, Y, Z. That's where Gary is an invaluable resource for us, I think, during the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's that chess piece.
The Lando show didn't know we were getting blessed with this group tonight. Neither did we, to be honest with you. Love it right before Hard Knocks. Hell, we didn't know either. Hell, if we get this shit to 300 likes, we might send you the link too. That's how Nino got on here.
Hey, don't live ever that you guys have done?
Oh, for sure.
Longest? Absolutely.
Well, maybe a post-game win. Maybe a post-game win. I have to go back and look, but
I'm getting text messages from the missus over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you got going on in there, man? I was like, we're not getting off anytime soon. That's what I told her. Go ahead and let so.
Nino's literally on a business trip and hanging out in the hotel room. Awesome. We got the show got to 200 likes. Somebody threw out a challenge. Show gets to 200 likes. Bring Nino in. Show got to 200 likes. We brought Nino in. Currently, the show has 265 folks watching it. There's 231 likes. Get that thing up to 300. We'll see what we can do. No, in all seriousness, no. Like you said, Steve, it's like hanging out with brothers, right? Like we didn't have Nino at the spring game, but it's like when we hook up with it's you, me, Homer, Lando, whoever, who else was there? Cross Enemy Lines was there. It's like catching up with old friends and brothers because we're in the same chat group on Twitter, sharing the same interests and sharing the same love for this program. So when you get together, it's just like our own little tailgate there at the spring game. Nino's coming down this year too. I think he said he's coming down for a couple of games, so we'll get a chance to catch up with him as well. Have to go down there and come right back though. We'll meet y'all pregame because y'all know we can't cover the postgame shows and be in the stands at the same time. So we'll go down there, say hi, and then pop back. But like you said, you guys are like family. We pop on to your stuff, you pop on to our stuff, and just like I said, I would challenge any fan base to come up with better YouTube content creators than the Texas Longhorns, because I don't search many other teams' stuff, but the value and the stuff that you guys put out, Homer and the guys, Lando and the guys I named before, are constantly at it. Like Clint said, at the infancy, it was us. Well, Steven, then Nino came out about the same time we did, and then Platinum, I think, was a little bit before us. And then since then, search Texas Longhorns football on YouTube, and you're probably get like 30 different content creators who drop 35 different videos that day. So everybody loves this team. Everybody loves covering this team. And I guess there is no drunk uncle. Yeah, you got Orange Bloods out there, ITs out there, 247s out there with their own YouTube stuff. So thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for supporting these guys' channel. If you haven't subscribed to Nino's Corner, get over there and do that. If you haven't subscribed to Fanatic Perspective, please get over there and do that. And any of the other guys I just named, please get over there and do that.
I love this community, and it's really, honestly, guys, is therapy for, I know, for me and for those of you guys listening out there, where we need that, sometimes we need to have that healthy distraction, or just to chat with friends and have some positive and fun conversation. A lot of you guys, live, do very challenging work, very stressful work. So, oh man,
hey.
Alex,
yeah,
y'all still packing me up. I love it. I love it. Hey, every now and again you got to get baked, man. And tonight was my night. Like I feel like Adrian Broner right now, man. Getting cooked.
It's because you're the most popular one of us. Like I said, you compare your numbers to us. I ain't got no beauty. What is that framed Fanatic Perspective thing you got in your background? What is that? Is that something autographed?
Yeah. So my wife and her friends said they are the official first ladies of Fanatic Perspective. They gave it to me as a birthday gift when I turned 30. So again, that's just like my support system back there. So I keep it in the frame.
I dig it.
You know what, man? I'm about to burn the AC/DC shirt, though, man. That one's going in the fire.
No, I'll DM you my address on Twitter, and you just mail it to me. and I'll send you something from in here that you like. We'll find something.
Trade.
Like my 9-iron over there that I don't hit very well.
I could never wear that shirt again after Tracy said what he said.
All right, question for y'all. All right, question. Here we go. All right, I think everybody kind of has their own thoughts on this. Quinn or Hudson, who's it going to be?
Quinn.
Who wants to go first? Quinn?
My heart says Quinn. It's got to be Quinn. It's got to be Quinn. But man, some of these text messages that we're all getting from our group chat is it's a little disappointing. But yeah, it's got to be Quinn.
You really wanted somebody to separate themselves at this point and make it an easy decision on Sark, and an easy guy for this fan base to get behind. I gotta say Quinn, only because of what we talked about earlier. If there's no separation, if there's no true separation or no large separation between the two, then you got to go with the younger guy with the higher upside, the higher ceiling, in my mind. But
hey, guys, my only thing is, if Hudson is named the starter, I kind of feel bad for him, because the minute he does anything wrong, the fan base is going to call for Quinn.
Yeah.
Regardless. I mean, the first mistake he makes. But whoever Sark picks, I think he has to ride him out throughout the whole season.
Agree with both.
So like, just for instance, last year, Card starts the first 2 games, doesn't do too well against Arkansas. Casey comes in, and Casey shows his toughness, shows his grit, shows everything, right? Does his thing. The next game, Casey goes against Texas Tech. He eats up Rice. I'm sorry, Rice. Which, let's be honest, whoever played against Rice was going to eat Rice up, right? It just was what it was. And then Casey starts against Texas Tech in the 4th game of the season, and whoever would have started that game was going to eat up Texas Tech. Their defense was hot garbage last year. So minus the Arkansas game, whoever starts those first 4 games is going to be 3-1. And so we could be talking about a Hudson Card being 3-1 last year going into the season. You know, he could have finished 5-7 as well. It's only 2 more wins, right? I mean, let's just be honest, right? So whoever he goes with, he needs to stick with that guy just for the confidence, piece, and for the continuity piece as well, and to not jerk around with the guys. That's why I think it's going to be Quinn, because if Hudson gets that job, I'm telling you, in the first mistake he makes against Alabama, the fans are going to be screaming for his head, just like the fans were when Major Applewhite was playing and Chris Sims. They wanted Sims in the game. They got Sims in the game. Sims did great things here at Texas, but there's always a division, Applewhite and Sims. And we don't need that division, Card and Ewers, right now for this team at this moment.
So my case, I think that's extremely well said, Nino, in terms of the division. I agree with really trying to stay the course behind a guy. I totally agree with that. I want to add 2 things to the conversation. Number one, do you give Sark credit for not coming in with a predetermined read on things and just naming a quarterback anyway and saying, you know what, my intention was to name a quarterback after the first scrimmage, but I haven't seen what I wanted to see to confirm that. So yeah, I don't mind waiting to make sure I have that solidified, because I do think that he should get some credit there for that, and not just making a call just to make a call to stay on course with things. Again, ability to pivot from your leader is very important. So I definitely still think Quinn Ewers is the better fit for what this team needs.
Yeah.
I see one of the comments here said Texas just needs a game manager and we limit turnovers. I think that would be relevant if we had a top 30, top 35 defense. If we knew for sure, if we knew for sure we had a top 30, top 35 defense, and we're gonna, let's say Baylor or Oklahoma State, we'll take those 2 teams, 2021 version of those teams last year, where every single one of their scores is going to be in that 21 to 24 point range. They're not letting teams hit 30 points, right? This changes the quarterback conversation completely, because now I'm just like, all right, I just need you to take care of the football, manage the game. Georgia last year, you're able to win a national championship with Stetson Bennett because his job turned into take care of the football, right? I'm not going to be disrespectful and say it was like a Trent Dilfer situation, because Stetson did throw for 27 touchdowns and he did have numbers, like he did, but everything was very defined. He threw the ball to Brock Bowers. He threw the ball to George Pickens when he came back, and they ran the football and controlled the clock and played TOP. And we're going to live with our defense taking this home for us. That's how we're going to win the football game. Texas does not have that luxury. None of us can sit here and come in the season confidently and be like, oh, we're going to have a top 30 defense that's going to create all sorts of havoc and get all these turnovers, and we just need to stay the course. No, we're going to need to put up points. And that means we're going to have to take risk. And who can maximize those shots that we're going to get in a Steve Sarkisian offense? And to me, Quinn Ewers, I think, is the perfect person to capitalize on those things. I don't have a problem with Steve making him earn it, though.
Yeah.
It's making him earn it and saying, hey, and also Quinn Ewers has been injured in the past. Hudson Card has been injured in the past. I got to have quarterbacks ready. People bringing up Malik Murphy. I'm glad he's practicing. Yes. You need people ready to go. But we're going to need to put points on the board. That's how, to me, that's Texas's path to winning football games. I know we want the defense to improve, but we're going to have some games. We're talking about going to Lubbock, right? Like, we're going to need to put up 45, 50 points to feel good about winning the football game, where I feel like, okay, we have an 80+% chance to win the game today if we hit this number. That's the way I'm looking at it from my perspective.
Hey,
all right. I like this comment real quick.
Go ahead. You got it.
I'm going to bring up we got an Ohio State fan in here, man. Buckeye fan here. Always had a soft spot for the Longhorns. Hope yours and Robbins eat the defense alive this year. Hook 'em, man. From Longhorn Nation here, man. Appreciate you joining the show. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just think Quinn gives you opportunities to make, like you said, throws that Hudson can't make. He gives you the ability, again, Nair. Not that Hudson would have missed that throw, but if you saw on Twitter the 90 seconds of missing Xavier Worthy last year, where it's just wide open run down the middle of the field, it was either 11. It was either 11 or it was 1. And not saying that Quinn hits every one of those balls, but if I can get 2 or 3 of those balls, and they look just like the one he hit Isaiah Nair on in the spring game, I just think he gives you more potential to bust big ones and put balls in certain spots that Hudson Card can't.
Real quick, I think Casey Thompson's going to be successful in Nebraska this year. No doubt. Yeah. I think he can. You don't come in and throw 6 touchdowns over and over and over again and almost break. I think it was crazy. I almost broke the record of touchdowns, right? At one point during the season. But it was the egregious throw to, I want to say, Jordan Whittington in the Baylor game where he ran him out of bounds. I think it was a slot fade, and he ran him out of bounds. You would have been up, and I was telling Jeremy this the other day, you would have been up.
What was Worthy?
20?
I know
it was Worthy, right? You know what I'm talking about? It's like Worthy, right?
Worthy.
That slot fade. You would have been up in the game, ran him out of bounds.
It was. Sure
20,
was.
20, you would have been up in that game, I think 28-3 at that point, 28-10, 28-3 at that point. But it was those missed throws that you see that I think a quarterback with a better arm that has better accuracy makes that throw. Because it wasn't like he was under duress. It was literally a slot fade to Worthy, and he ran him out of bounds. And you've seen the one coming off of, I think, what was it? What was it in the spring game? I think hit somebody in the damn helmet out of bounds.
That's where you feel good as a Texas fan about Sark too, because you're like, he defeated Dave Aranda on that play. That's a touchdown.
Yeah,
he defeated him on that play. Dave Aranda's like, oh, thank God the guy threw it out of bounds against all those NFL DBs that were at Baylor. Jalen Petrie starting for the Houston Texans already. Those guys were out there getting cooked, but we didn't execute. We just flat out didn't execute the throws. So I completely agree with you, Clint. Just from a schematic standpoint, if I have the trigger man, the proper trigger man to hit on those things, we are completely in business. And so the picks are going to come. He's a freshman. There's going to be times where he falls for a trap. My thing is, I go back to the old Bill Parcells thing. Just don't be throwing me baby 3-yard interceptions at the line of scrimmage, bro. I don't want to see you know what I'm saying? Like the bubble route that Josh Thompson took to the house against Taylor Shuck in the Tech game.
Yeah.
But if Quinn Ewers is throwing 50 yards down the field trying to,
that's no but a punt. It's a punt.
That's what I'm saying. Context.
Yeah.
Hey, also, folks, when folks are talking about the game manager thing, right? Let's be honest. Casey couldn't hit the deep ball. Essentially, we had a game manager last year. And we couldn't get the deep ball, and so
consistently.
So when we're talking about a game manager, we had a guy who couldn't hit the deep ball last year, whether it was injury or not, what have you. He was basically getting chunk yardage, 10 yards here, 5 yards there, 7 yards there, or a 10-yard pass that X has to turn up and make a 60-yard run, right? So, we essentially had a game manager last year with a below-average defense, and that got us to a 5-7 record. Like Steven says, we need somebody who can get that ball down the field, somebody who can make those plays. Quinn is a gunslinger. Yes, it's going to be ups and downs with this, man. It's definitely going to be ups and downs with this. However, I think he does give us the best opportunity to run the Sark offense. And like you said, Sark was scheming folks open all last year. Just like, everybody saw those clips where X is running down the field like crazy and every quarterback was just missing them. And it just was what it was. If we get a guy like Quinn to hit half of those throws, man, that's probably 2 to 3 more wins in this team. Easy.
All right. I pulled this one up because I want to talk about this because it kind of talks about what Stevens was talking about earlier about access, right? Yeah. So the last time we've seen Quinn Ewers play a competitive football game where he was throwing the football was his junior year at South Lake Carroll. So he bypassed his senior year, reclassified, went to Ohio State, sat behind C.J. Stroud. The only time we've seen him play a competitive brand of football was a scrimmage against his own team. And so, Scott, I pulled this up because the last bit of tape that us guys have really been able to look at and analyze was his junior year at South Lake Carroll. Talking about intermediate throws, out routes, crossing routes, throws. And again, I said with his sophomore tape, when he originally committed to the University of Texas and then decommitted with Ohio State, me and Clint did a commitment corner on him, similar to what Nino does now when a commit, decides to go to University of Texas. He watches their film and then gives a quick synopsis. And I know Nino agrees with this comparable, but the best throwing arm to come out of the state of Texas is Matthew Stafford. Yep, so exactly. He can make every throw on the route tree from hash mark to hash mark. And I also, but like Steven says, our limited access, that's the last thing we really have to analyze and go by. So that's the vision that I have of Quinn Ewers playing the quarterback position.
Quinn's strength is accuracy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. People see, the thing is, we put labels, especially in football. We're still like this in the football community. So when a guy has a really strong arm, we're very reluctant to say that guy's also accurate, right? Like it's always like one of the two. But in the case of Quinn, his ball placement, somebody mentioned screens, RPOs. At South Lake Carroll, they ran a lot of screens and a lot of RPOs. You have to be very, very careful with your ball placement. To me, from what I've heard and from what I can probably imagine based upon the player, he's not throwing interceptions because he's inaccurate. He's throwing interceptions because he's misreading the coverage or throwing just like he did in the spring game with Anthony Cook, right? That's not necessarily, he threw the ball behind the guy or he keeps consistently hitting the back shoulder. Quinn's accuracy, when he sees and rips it on deep outs, accurate. The ball is on time. He understands. And Malik Murphy has this too, that they both, I will give them both credit here. They know how to take something off their football. I was watching an interview with Garrett Wilson on the New York Jets, and they asked him the difference between Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco because Zach Wilson is injured. And he was saying, Joe Flacco knows how to, when he throws a slant, if it's open, take something off of it so we can run upfield versus when he needs to throw a dart. And he said that's something that Zach is still learning. That's a trait that I've already seen inherently from Quinn Ewers throughout his sophomore film, where he's throwing to a little fullback. I'm not throwing a dart at the fullback. I'm throwing him a good catchable football.
Catchable ball, yeah.
But he knows if my guy's coming over on a dig and that safety right there and that backer right there, I'm going to put some heat on it and fit it in there. He understands that very, very well.
That's what Steve Sarkisian wants in a quarterback, and that's what he got from Mac Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Jones could sit there and he could read a defense, and his balls were based on who he was throwing it to. If he needed to put it between a linebacker and a safety, he knew that he needed to put something on the ball. But it wasn't like that every time because he had, his running back coming out of the backfield, and he knew that he needed to put it out there. And I think Quinn Ewers, Mac Jones obviously doesn't have – I don't think he has Quinn Ewers' arm. Yeah, arm talent. There's a reason he was a 99, 1,000 guy. Mm-hmm. But I think – as far as when you're talking about touch and when he needs to put something on the ball to get it into a tight window versus when he doesn't have to do that, I think he has the same thing that Mac Jones has, and that's the ability to take something off the ball or put something on the ball, depending on where his coverage is at, and being able to fit it in a tight window versus not having to fit it in a tight window.
That's also something that Arch Manning is also very good at. I know people start losing their minds whenever his name comes up, but if you watch Arch Manning throw over the middle of the field, you will see different levels of velocity on the football. That's on purpose. You know what I mean? So those are things you pay attention. That's something that Patrick Mahomes got good at in the NFL that he wasn't really good at in college. Mm-hmm. Like he was throwing everybody 90. And then when he gets with Andy Reid for a year and the Chiefs and Bieniemy and all those guys, all of a sudden he has a variety of throws. Mm-hmm. So it's like pitching, honestly. Like it's very similar to pitching. So
I have a change up. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. Also, folks, man, just looking at Quinn, right? When you see his outstanding arm talent, some of me thinks that even in practice, maybe he's trying to try some of these things out just to see if it can work. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Practice is the time where you're supposed to be able to make your mistakes and then say, oh, hey, I tried that against, Cook and it didn't work. So I'm not going to try that in the game, but hey, I got to try it, because if I don't try it, I don't know. Right. So, maybe he's trying that with his arm talent, just trying to test things out just to see if he can make that throw, so things are a lot faster at the college level. His last real game was his junior year, so yeah, it might just be him testing his arm out in these certain, times, just to make sure that, he can make those throws if needed.
Always got 5. And like you said, you gotta be able to take a little bit off. And again, he shows the touch passes too. You can see that clearly in the film. Guys coming across the middle, just beyond the linebackers and ahead of the safeties. He's not trying to throw, like you said, 100-mile-an-hour fastball in there, but take just a little bit off to get over the linebacker's head and in front of the safeties. He has that ability.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking about quarterback speed. I haven't seen any 40 times on Card, Malik, or Quinn. I know they're all pretty athletic. Yeah. I would venture to say that Hudson Card is probably the fastest. Just because I saw him at Lake Travis play receiver. But I haven't seen any 40 times on the quarterbacks, and I really don't think it matters. Again, quarterback runs in Sark's offense are off-schedule plays. They weren't called from the sideline. They're because somebody got beat, and the first look wasn't open. They don't have time to let it go, and they're trying to get to that, trying to move the sticks, trying to make positive yards and not take a sack. But I don't know what the 40 times are.
Yeah.
I want to add one note to that comment, and there's something I noticed in the live feed, because it looks like practice just wrapped. Yeah. But with the quarterback run thing, I understand that that's not what Sark wants to do. That's not a desired element. Totally get it. I understand the why of it. However, Sark also is the same person that says the more you can do well, the more dangerous you are. Mm-hmm. He's also said that before as well. So my point to that is, I'm not big on just taking things all the way off the table. If you're going to play Hudson Card, and this kind of goes to something that Ian Boyd wrote the other day when he was breaking down the 2 different quarterbacks, but if you're going to play Hudson Card, in my opinion, there has to be some element of quarterback run in there. Because in the Arkansas game, I could tell that he was programmed not to run. You could tell. He was literally getting to the line of scrimmage and then like stopping himself and then throwing from an unnecessarily awkward angle. His feet were moving way too quick. And I'm like, whoa. Same scenario on Lake Travis, when you have that same amount of space, you would just run for 6 yards. Like, you weren't thinking about that when you were at Lake Travis. You would just take, and he's fast, like was mentioned before. So I would also say, priority still to move the sticks. And that's one thing that Casey Thompson would do sometimes against what Steve Sarkisian liked to see. But Casey Thompson was really good at just putting his head down, getting 8 yards, keep the chains moving. So I want to see Hudson Card, if you're gonna play him, or if you're gonna go down that path, at least give him the liberty. I'm not saying design runs, quarterback power, stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. But if it's not there, rather than trying to go to progression 4, take off, get your 8 yards, get out of bounds, let's keep it moving.
So, Steven, do you think there's a thought in Sark? A thought in Sark's headphones doing something weird. A thought in the back of Sark's mind that he really wants Quinn to win this job because there's not an element of quarterback run in his current offense, and he wants to be able to run his offense to its full extent. And to put that in, he'd have to probably take something out. And then again, you're talking about if it's not already in there, he's going to have to install it the last 2 weeks of fall camp. So I'm just saying, is there a thought in Sark's mind, hey, in order to run my full capable offense, I think Quinn's the guy that can allow me to do that versus Hudson?
I think Quinn. I think he's looking at Quinn more so from the most dangerous version of my
capabilities.
Offense. Yep. The most dangerous version of my offense involves Quinn Ewers. I do think from a standpoint of run or quarterback run or anything like that. I mean, I don't think I think you always want to have something mixed in just to throw people off and sprinkle some things in. But I think the most dangerous version of Sark's offense involves Quinn Ewers and what he can do over the top, because that opens up everything else underneath.
RPO play action. RPO play action.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, this practice report, though, there are in Joe's notes, and this is what I was kind of referring to, 12 personnel. Jordan Whittington's playing Z in here, and it says that Ewers actually on one of them hit a crossing route to Whittington playing the Z out of 12. So, again, I've always looked at, even with Nair healthy, I still thought there were packages where Whittington would actually play in 12 personnel, not full time, but there's ability for you to have some diversity in terms of skill set there, especially with Jordan Whittington's football IQ. I mean, it's essential. Guys, when I'm with the scrambling thing, I'm not, again, somebody said Kyler Murray type scrambling. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Not as fast and all that, but in terms of getting the yards that are in front of you to keep the drive going. That's all I'm talking about. There are going to be times where the play is dead, somebody ran the wrong route, or damn it, they won on defense and they got everything covered up. Let me get my 5. That's all I'm saying. But in that Arkansas game, there were opportunities there for him to take 5 yards here, 6 yards there, and I'm telling you, he was programmed not to do it. And so now the ball's being sprayed all over the place and the player's not playing with confidence. That's all I'm saying.
So it sounds like Jaleel Billingsley is in 12 personnel is that Isaiah Nair role. I just drew out my 12 personnel, and how I would line them up is JT Sanders in line on the same side as X Worthy, because I want to get him out there in the peripheral, away from all the havoc, and let him work one-on-one. And then I'm going to have Jaleel Billingsley inside of Jordan Whittington on the other side with, of course, Bijan in the backfield. But, yeah, that's what they said. Problem solved. You got a body like Isaiah Nair and Jaleel Billingsley, put them on the side as Jordan Whittington, let those guys work in combo, and then leave X on the outside to do his thing against whatever they want to do. But, yeah, it's many different personnel packages and as many different formations. It gets ULM to put as much stuff on tape as we possibly can for the defense, and then figure out what our best personnel packages are going forward against Alabama and the rest of the schedule. I
love you guys, man, and I would stay on here all night.
But
I'm not doing
got a second text.
I was actually going
dry.
Mine is too. I was actually going through some of the reports on 247 to see what we can pull up before,
Blast.
But yeah, I'm empty too, man. We got Nino on here on some Wi-Fi from the hotel room too. And Steve, it was up to Steve. Hell, we'd be on here for another probably 48 minutes. But I'm trying to save my marriage too, though. You know what I'm saying? This is a passion project. So, I love y'all guys, man. We're going to have to come back on here. We're going to get a bigger group. I know we had talked about that, Nino, when we were on the show last time. I know we had that big group. Actually, me and Jeremy went back and watched it. I forgot when it was. I think it was right after the Oklahoma game last year, which was a disaster. Yeah, we had us, and then Homer. It had Lando, Texas Platinum. I think there was like 8 guys on here. Yeah. I think there was like eight people on this show, man. But we have to do it, man. But y'all made this fun tonight, man. Them picking on Steven, man, about his shirt, getting enough likes to get Nino on here. This was fun, man. This was fun
absolutely
tonight.
Blast.
It's a lot of fun.
They said Nino needs to eat.
Hell, I need to eat. I thought I was going to be on here for hours, so I didn't eat. I was like, yeah, she cooked some type of chicken rice, bowl situation, like we're eating at Chipotle. And I was
we're all eating cold food.
She's like, are you gonna eat before the show? And I was like, no, I think we're good. Well, I'll eat after the show. Hell, we're sitting at 9:15 and I'm sitting here, with low blood sugar at this point. But I love y'all, gentlemen, man. And it's always a blast. Like they said, man, it's just like talking next to the cooler, man, and with some brothers talking ball, man. Like Jeremy said earlier, I don't think any other, team, college football team, produces the same amount of content or the same content that we do, man. And I'm telling you, I watched Nino shit earlier. I'm sitting there listening to Nino stuff on the way home from work tonight, but it's the same thing, man. You can't get enough content. Definitely want to get everybody's opinion on the same things that we talk about So
Nino had already recorded the Jordan Matthews video. Now we
He
have to
did?
send it to children in
we
Africa.
talked about that.
Oh,
Hey,
man.
we had to burn Shamar Turner,
Oh, man.
Lamar Wheaton. There were several that we had to burn. We thought Clint was telling Nino we thought we were a bad omen. We kept doing them commitment quarters pre-taped. There's a lot in the trash, and then we stopped doing them because we thought we were bad luck.
I actually sent Jeremy the tweet for Jordan Matthews. Hey man, the tweet's ready. The tweet is ready. You know what I'm saying?
The Jordan Matthews hurt too.
Discarded.
I know Nino was hurt because that was one of his people too. You
Yeah,
talk about Louisiana boy.
Louisiana.
That was one of your people, bruh.
I was hurt. Tennessee. Oh man.
All right, let's not get Clint divorced.
All right, yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Go
Hell yeah,
subscribe
man.
to Fanatic Perspective. Go subscribe to Nino's Corner. And before you get out of here, subscribe to us too, because like you said, this 22 football season is going to be fire.
Yeah, it is, man. All right, we appreciate y'all listening as always. Let me do this outro real quick. Hey, you can find us on Twitter at Twitter on TX Football Talk, on Instagram at TX Football Talk, and on Facebook at TX Football Talk. We appreciate y'all listening as always. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your week and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.